All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this beautiful April morning of April 11th. This is where we are going to bring to order the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. So with that, Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call? I'm sorry, salute to the flag. Mr. Art Sperber, will you lead us in the salute to the flag, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Bob Lucy, Chair.
Here.
Marcia Birkbigler, Vice Chair.
Here.
Kitty Jung.
Present.
Von Hartung.
Here.
Jeannie Herman. County Manager John Slaughter.
Present.
Assistant District Attorney Paul Liparelli.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. Mr. Manager.
Our next item is item 3, which is public comment. Comment heard under this item is limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. And as a reminder, comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
All right. At this time, we have a few people signed in for public comment. As per our new arrangement, I will call public comment at this time. So first and foremost, we will have Mr. William Poochert. Sorry.
I've given you some copies of what I'm speaking to in my testimony today. Commissioners, Mr. Manager, and Assistant DA. I stand here today almost a month after your Code Enforcement Department had issued a stop order for corrective action on an illegal sign that has been erected on the cemetery adjacent to the back of my home. Picture right here.
So ugly.
And as Mountain View Cemetery mentions in this Facebook post from them last month, after denying they have nothing to do with the sign, they mentioned that the proceeds of the, I don't have the post with me, but in there they mention, after denying that they have nothing to do with the sign, that they know where the proceeds are going to be going to. And they say it's going to charity. And in the Facebook post, I have it right here, they even call it a billboard themselves. This Thursday, April 13th at 9 a.m. in Judge Miranda Dew's courtroom at the Bruce Thompson Federal Building, a hearing will be held in the matter of strict scrutiny media versus the City of Reno against the perpetrators of the illegal sign behind my home. Unfortunately for me, that case only addresses the 2 other illegal signs that are located in the city's jurisdiction, since the sign behind my home is in Washoe County. Thus, I respectfully make this request to you. Please file an amicus brief on my behalf to expedite the process of having the sign removed. It seems logical because the responsible parties are the same and it would have the same legal goal. The above-mentioned lawsuit was filed in mid-December of last year, and Thursday will mark 4 months when it is finally to be heard. Do we really have to wait this long for the sign behind my home? As News Channel 8 has reported, the perpetrators of this illegal sign have a record of suing municipalities to discourage billboard and sign ordinances and collecting damages at taxpayers' expense. And to date, neither Strict Scrutiny Media, A.K. Allen and Jeff Herson, or Mountain View Cemetery, whose land that the illegal signs are on, or the Oddfellows, who owns the cemetery and is named in the complaint, do not seem to have any interest in following the law. And that's what this issue is about, following the law. These signs are illegal. They are breaking the law, and I ask that you enforce the law. That's all.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Poochert. Next, Ms. Carol Mansfield.
Good morning. I'm Carol Mansfield, and I live on Everett Drive. He's a neighbor up the street. Anyway, these 4 poles that were put up overnight. They were done illegally, and there was no permits at all to do. Now, we live in the city, but here, this is in the county, so we would really like you to help us out there. They lied to us. I went down to visit them twice, and they says, we don't know why it's up there, and we're not going to do anything about it. It's located within the drainage area of the Highland Ditch. And what we're afraid of up in this neighborhood, you have a whole series of houses, then you have the drainage going by, and it's cemented, and then you have the sign up there that looks, and you can only see it one way, going out of town on 80. So what I'm worried about is that somebody's gonna siphon the water off that canal, put it down at the base of the sign, and somebody's gonna get in there with a car one night and try to pull it over. There's already a lot of mud around there. They've been in there scraping up to hide the truck tracks. The truck came in behind my house. I overlook the cemetery pond, and I saw that truck with all of its pipes come in. So that they're doing this. I think they get $2,000 probably a month to put up a sign. Only be seen one way. They cleared off at the other end a little brush so the cars going down 80 that way could look up and see it. Also, the bridge that goes across 80 for the church to get to their water source, I mean, not the church, the cemetery, to get to their water source, has 2 signs on it for cars going in and out of Reno to see if there's any ice or something. So here you'll have cars going, trying to look at flashing signs there, and then there's this big sign up there. We don't know if it's gonna have lights on it. We don't know what's gonna go on with it, because they did not get any permit, and they didn't have to tell us. So what we want you to do is just don't let them have it. Don't become a person that starts a healthy, vibrant neighborhood toward deterioration and no longer a tax source. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mansfield. Next, we have Ms. Tammy Holt-Still. I'm sorry.
And Ms. Holt still submitted some documents, which I'll distribute to the board.
Thank you. Good morning, Mrs.
Good morning.
Holt-Still.
Hello again, Board of Commissioners. I am Tammy Holt-Still, a resident of Lemon Valley. I have read 5I and noticed Lemon Valley costs are at $950,000 spent for the 2 declared emergency events. I find this interesting because Dave Solero has stated $4.5 million was spent on Lemon Valley, which is what the total declared amount is being requested that you are voting on. Don't you think there is a major disparity in what's being represented to us residents? I also have noticed the amounts for Lemon Valley, and again, request full disclosure on the expenditures by Washoe County. Now, this makes my 4th request in writing and verbally. At this time, the 2 stilling wells, which were in the governor's press release request to the president for inflow into Swan Lake, where are they? I have requested this information since March 29th to now, verbally and in email, with no response from anyone. There is another issue, and that is the Stead Sewer Plant feeding a public lake, which is Swan Lake. Yes, the Stead Sewer Plant is a City of Reno facility, but it flows into a county lake. Why is that? What kind of kickback is there? Again, the public lake, what kind of interesting, considering that Sky Vista, there's a sign warning about affluent water. Really? There is a saying, the solution of pollution is not dilution, it's still pollution. Take a take a gallon of water and a quart of paint, mix it together, and what do you get? You get colored water that's non-usable or drinkable and bad paint. Then the email you received yesterday with pictures attached. Thank you, Commissioner Jung, for replying back. But again, it's time for the parent governing body, that's you guys, to take control of the city of Reno. Maybe it's time to strong arm the right people and not the residents. Oh, AB 39. I know you voted to support it, undermining the representation of the North Valleys for the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. Yes, I have a grassroots calling the committee to vote no or to stop this. I have also addressed it with Governor Sandoval for what it's worth. I don't like being here or politics, but I am extremely, immensely offended with people who let other people suffer for no reason because it doesn't make them money. I am still here until you are doing your fiduciary responsibility for further notice. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. Next, we have Mr. Danny Cleus.
My name is Danny Cleus, live at 11630 Tupelo Street. I have something from the Washoe County Flood Awareness. It says causes of flooding. Flooding is most common December through March in Washoe County when the storms incompress with warmer temperatures and heavy rainfall over the snowpacked Sierras mountains. Larger floods result from heavier rains continued over a course of several days, incorporated with by snowmelt at the time the soil is near saturation from previous precipitation. Ravine flooding and urban flooding are the two types of flooding that primarily affect Washoe County. Ravine flooding over bank flooding of rivers and streams, the natural process which aids sediment and nutrients to fertile floodplain areas. Urban flooding results from the conservation of land from fields or vacant land to buildings, parking lots, and roads through which the land lost its ability to absorb rainfall. And the water runoff from the storms cause increased water in the low-lying areas. That is Lemon Valley, guys. I have another thing that I just read this morning, and this is on Facebook. Oh, now it's not going to pull up. Here we go. This is from a gentleman that has written on Lemon Valley Flood Relief Assistance. Says, I hope everyone remembers this for a long time. It is time for a new county commissioner, new county manager, and new sheriff, a public works director. It says, I have lived out here since January 1976. We have never gotten much from the county. I can go on and on and on, but I won't for now. We need a change out here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cleus. Next, we have Mr. Sam Dene.
Sam Dene, Sam DNA Dene, that's me, the DNA of Reno government. The heart, soul, body, and mind of Reno government, standing here in the darkness again. I still do not understand why they want to turn the lights down when the citizens come to the podium. That seems very discourteous, at the very least. Also, I still complain about those expensive chairs you bought. They're very uncomfortable. I'm almost thinking that they're not even healthy to sit in those things because a chair should have a 90-degree angle. These things, you sit like a clam in there. Anyway, there's bigger fish to fry. Sam DNA, that's me. America has no greater patriot, warrior, or entertainer than Sam DNA Dene, me. And this fact is authenticated by the fact that the Reno media mouses throughout the community are scared in their pantyhose and jealous of this 160-pound senior citizen, Air Force Academy graduate, fighter pilot, bomber pilot, who has spent his life protecting our nation against enemies inside of the border and more recently enemies inside of the border. Number one, my heart and so go out, and my prayers go out, that Story County over there has an honest, what's called a recall vote today against their prominent, patriotic, heroic sheriff over there, Sheriff Antonoro. I hope there's an honest vote count over there because he will win. I hate to call it winning. He will be kept in position by a unanimous vote, except it won't be unanimous because the Tahoe Reno Industrial Complex, who is being supported by our dozens of millions of dollars of our taxes, is using some of that money to try to get rid of the sheriff who has been taking them to task and forcing them to obey the law. So I hope Sheriff Antonoro wins by an honest election. Number two, people are always asking me, Sam, how can the Reno Gazette get away with having secret meetings? How does the Reno Gazette, a public body, how do they get away with having secret meetings? Why don't they have to obey the laws that these people have to obey? And the Reno City Council, they have their meetings in secret. They are, by every important definition of the word, they are a public body. And the main one being is they receive the vast majority of their income, their revenue, from our taxes, from taxes. These people pay their taxes, you pay their taxes by these things called legal notices. Dozens of millions of dollars a year paid to that Reno Gazette, and they should have to. Whoa, that clock went out. Where's the bell? Anyway, they should have
Thank
to
you, Mr.
abide
Bonet.
by a nice smiley face. The Reno Gazette should have to abide by the open meeting law.
Thank you,
Please,
Mr. Bonet.
Attorney General, listen to Sam.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Dene. Seeing no other speakers on this morning signed in for public comment, we'll bring it back to the board. At this time, Mr. Manager. Oh, yes. Before we get started into our next agenda item, I want to have a quick moment of silence. Over this last week, we lost a fellow county commissioner. County Commissioner Ted Short passed away on April 3rd. Last week, and he served as a county commissioner for District 2, my district, from 1999 through 2003. So if we could hold a short moment of silence for our commissioner. Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, next item is Item 4, Commissioner County Manager's announcements, reports and updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas. I have one announcement regarding today's agenda. I would request 2 items be removed from the agenda today. Item 5C on your consent agenda, that's an appointment. We'll bring that back and list all applicants for that appointment. And then item 11 as well, please.
Okay. Do I have?
I'm sorry, that was the wrong number, not 11. Our sheriff's folks had a panic moment there for a moment. It's item 10. Item 10 from the agenda. That's the
All right.
Nevada Shared Radio System contract. That will come back. It's not, it's a timing issue with our rest of our partners on that project.
All right, so we're moving item 10. And, all right. All right, at this time, I have Commissioner Herman signed in for, Commissioner Herman, go ahead.
Okay, I had a constituent call me, and it was regarding something that we had discussed earlier, and that was the fire sprinklers, and we had kind of settled on allowing people under 5,000 square feet to not have to put these $10,000 worth of sprinklers in their house. So this man is needing help with that because he's got a 1,300 square foot or smaller, and they're making him do that. So, and it's in my district, so I just wanted to, have some relief for him. And then the other item that I wanted to talk about was our District 5 wants to, even if it's just in a very small way, say thank you to this board and some of our people here that caused us to get some relief from the flood problems. And so we appreciate it. And so in this little tiny way, I just put a few eggs there. These were donated for you. And they're eggs.
Oh. No, that's good. We all love fresh eggs. Awesome. Thank you. That's a very nice gesture.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, this is terrific. Good cholesterol.
Thank you, Commissioner Herman. That was a very nice, that's a wonderful gesture.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
I would just say, Commissioner Herman, thank you very much. My husband, as you know, is on a very restricted diet, and one of the few things he can have as protein is eggs. So he will be extremely excited when I bring this home. Thank you.
All right. Anything further, Commissioner Herman, at this time? Okay. Okay. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for legal, and I'm gonna play some bad puns here, Mr. Liparelli. How do we help Ms. Mansfield and Mr. Poochert kill and bury this sign issue? Can we join them? Do we have to have an attorney-client? How do we deal with that?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I've made a note here, and I'll research the situation and provide a response to Commissioner Hartung.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liparelli. And next item, Mr. Chairman, you and I have had conversations, we've had conversations from the dais about a more active role for me in planning. What I'd like to do is at some very near time on the next agenda, or maybe the agenda at the end of the month, I'd like to articulate what that looks like, the meetings that I'll need to attend, and kind of get some approvals to work backwards with staff.
Okay, great.
And then one last item. Actually, there's two places for this. There's 2 points to this. I would like to ask for a $2,500 expenditure for a young lady. Her name is Adeline Trimble. And I've come up with an idea, and I would like to form a grant process. I'd like to call it the Yes Grant. Mr. Rogers, can we put that up? So, and it's youth engaged in service. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to give my, some of my funds to this grant program. Let me tell you a little bit about this young lady. Adeline Trimble, second grader. Adeline Trimble in September 2016 was awarded a grant from Disney. She used that grant for a book drive and for warm clothing. She collected over 3,200 books. I'll tell you what she did with these in just a second. She did a number, and also a number of coats. In January of 2017, she did a warm clothes drive with some other students at Spanish Springs Elementary School. So in total, she got donated 3,274 books and gave them to the Kids Cottage, Sun Valley Elementary, Step 2 Family Counseling Center, Libby Booth Elementary, the Children's Cabinet, the Women and Children's Center for the Sierra, Renowned Hospital Pediatrics. As you may know, when they give books to kids, they can't take them back. The kids get to keep them, so they're in constant need of books. St. Mary's Hospital Pediatrics, 223 books. The daughter of a visiting scientist from China, she gave that child 5 books. Boys and Girls Club, 173. Fallon Youth Club, 123. Books of Africa, 100. Sierra Association of Foster Families, 88. Volunteers of America Family Shelter, 286. Washoe County Social Services, 139. And then Community in Schools in Western Nevada, 187 books. This little girl's a powerhouse, and I'm going to ask her to be here next week, and I'd like to award her this $2,500, I'm calling it a YES grant, and we've asked her to put together what she'd like to do. She'd like to give a donation to, and it has to be, of course, things that we approve: the Children's Cabinet, Kids Cottage, Food Bank, Renown and St. Mary's Hospital, Spanish Springs Library, and Washoe County School District, Spanish Springs Elementary for, there's a need in a classroom for some adaptive PE equipment for a student with cerebral palsy. And so what I'm asking for is next week I'll have that on our agenda, and I'm asking for an approval. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like a 2-hour, I'm asking for more than 2 hours of staff time. I've talked to Gabrielle Enfield, and I'd like to establish the YES grant where, and I've already talked to a number of outside donors that would be happy to put money into this program and hopefully create something that is self-sustaining.
Wonderful.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for enduring that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. That sounds like a wonderful program for our community youth. So, Commissioner Brickbigler or Commissioner John? Commissioner John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to let you know that I went out on site and met with a constituent in Sun Valley with Mr. Solaro to inspect the ditches, which the county is responsible in maintaining. And because of the FEMA grant money that has come through, I want the rest of the commission and the rest of the county to be aware it'll be about 18 months total to do the whole county with the inspections. And what the ditch inspectors are doing is prioritizing them based on that. So we will be on our way out. If you have a ditch that we are to maintain, and if you're not sure who does, give us a call. But it'll be over a course of about 18 months before we can get to every single one of these places. So we know your ditches are eroding, and they will be based on a triage priority system. And the only other thing I have is to wish congratulations to the VFW Post 9211, of which I am a lifetime member of, for the auxiliary. They are celebrating their 75th anniversary over there off Moana. I don't know if you've ever been to the bunker over there. And that's tonight, if anybody would like to come join us. And most importantly, I want to say thank you to Mr. Nat Caraselli and Stephen Asquaga of the Peppermill, who donated, I haven't seen it yet, but a sheet cake enough to feed 100 with our insignia, et cetera, for tonight's event. Most of what, and lots of people donated things. I know the Atlantis did, but that's the only one I was involved with. So I just want to do a shout out and thank you and congratulations to VFW Post 9211, of which my mother is the secretary of the auxiliary and my dad is the chaplain of the actual post.
Great.
Thank you.
Good.
Commissioner Brickbigler. Vice
Thank
Chair
you.
Brickbigler, I should say.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I received, and maybe everybody else did, although I can't tell whether they did or not because this was addressed just to me, but it's a request from a constituent by the name of Jane Lyon regarding the Yucca APP review process that's been approved by Nye County and several other counties. And they're asking for Washoe County to draft a resolution regarding this, and I will submit this letter to the clerk, but if you would, Mr. Manager, please look and see if that's something we want to bring before this commission to discuss. I don't know exactly what this whole process is because I've not had time to research it, but Madam Clerk, I'll bring this right to you. And I understand we also have an opening on the open space parks. I believe it's in your district. But I received a request for resignation and refilling the position with someone different. I think it's Commissioner Jung's seat. Additionally, I have met with staff, Sarah Tone and Al Rogers yesterday. We talked at length about those ugly posts that are supposed to be the sign, that the illegal sign that they're putting up there, and they are very ugly. They're rusted, they look horrible, and they need to come down. And so I understand that we are working with the city, but if, as Commissioner Hartung requested, we could get something done legally to get rid of those posts, because you can see them from both sides of the freeway, and they are very ugly just sitting out there. So I'd like to see that done sooner rather than later. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Berkbigler. Couple things I have. One, I'd like to go back just briefly and talk about Commissioner Ted Short. In his short tenure here at the commission, he was very influential in District 2 and definitely for the most part planning. He played a pivotal part in regards to the placement of Damani Ranch High School. And when Damani Ranch High School, there was a lot of contention in regards to where its placement would be. Commissioner Ted Short, stood up and voted at the time what may have been against people's better will, and stood for his position that sometimes you have to take a look at the bigger picture and really take a hard stance on certain issues. He was a wonderful commissioner, a very strong-willed individual, and stood for the right of the county and the community. And now, 17 years later, we are sitting here with a wonderful Damani Ranch area that has, been very beneficial for the city of Reno, based upon some of his foresight at the time to lead us into that direction. So, our thoughts and prayers are with his family at this time. And this is a very difficult time, but I just want to reminisce on his wonderful tenure here at Washoe County and as a commissioner. I think he really stood for what it means to be a true Nevadan and a true member of our committee. So with that being said, I want to also move on and point out that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and our amazing manager, Slaughter, happens to be wearing a beautiful lapel pin, a blue pinwheel lapel pin. And our DA department went out to Carson City and placed pinwheels in the Carson City Legislature lawn, representing child advocacy and child abuse prevention, and for every a child that's been affected through child abuse over the years. And so this is it's a difficult time, and it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and we want to continue to support our DAs and our judicial system as we continue to combat child abuse in our area and move forward with that. I want to support Commissioner Hartung's request for his YES grant. I'd like to see where we go with the YES grant and that ability to provide those kinds of services for our youth when they have those opportunities. Sometimes the solutions to things such as child abuse can come from our kids, and giving young children that have those abilities, that forethought to be leaders in the community at such a young age, need that support of us. And so I would ask that we support Commissioner Hartung in his endeavors going forward. Next, I would like to bring forth a discussion. I'd like to see in May further discussion about, I'd like to see Heather Condon from our pretrial services come back and give us a presentation on where we are with the Nevada pretrial risk assessment and how that is moving forward. So I'd like to schedule that for May. Also, I'd like to ask for a proclamation for the NCJ, FCJ. We need to do a proclamation for them, so I know their CEO has reached out to me in regards to getting that proclamation, so if we can get staff on that. And other than that, that is all I have at this time. So, with that being said, is that open, Commissioner Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I neglected to ask for next week. I'd like to acknowledge Adeline Trimble with a proclamation. So, and she's going to come, by the way, be a commissioner on our honorary
Commissioner for a day.
That's
like
correct.
it.
Yes.
All right.
So she'll be here at 10 a.m.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Seeing no other discussion or comments from the commissioners at this time, I'll bring it back. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, next item is your consent agenda that shows up as items 5A through 5I on your agenda today. And just a reminder of the request that we remove item 5C.
All right.
Move approval.
Okay, I have a motion. And we do need you to motion on your,
Oh,
nope. Yep. All right, so I have a motion. I have a motion by Commissioner Vice Chair Burke-Bigler, second by Commissioner Jung. All those in favor signify by, public comment. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, do we have public comment signed in?
I don't see any, Mr. Chair.
No, I see no public comment at this time signed in. All right, see no public comment, bring it back to the board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We don't vote on this one.
Okay.
Do that way. That way, you know what I was trying to get to, yeah. All right. So motion carries unanimously. We are on. Mr. Manager. Oh, yes, block vote. Vice Chair Burke-Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I propose that we put in a block vote number 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13.
So
I made the motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Burke-Bigler. Second, John? You want a second it on your pad? Great. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, I'll read those items. Item 8, recommendation to accept the notice of subgrant in the amount of $518,349 with no county match from the State of Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health, retroactive from March 1, 2017 through February 28, 2019, to provide crisis and jail diversion services through a mobile outreach safety team, the MOST team, to individuals with a mental health condition who have come into contact with law enforcement, and authorized the creation of 2.2 FTE mental health counselor 2 positions funded 100% by the DPBH grant MOST grant award. Direct the Human Resources Department to make necessary staffing adjustments subject to the approval of Job Evaluation Committee. Authorize the department to execute the award, and direct the Comptroller's Office to make necessary budget amendments. Item 9 is recommendation to approve a 1-year extension of the Investment Management Services Agreement between Washoe County and PFM Asset Management LLC and Hobbs, Ong and Associates Incorporated, to authorize future renewal options to be executed by the treasurer upon approval by the Washoe County Investment Committee. The estimated annual cost is $315,000, which is allocated among the funds and agencies who participate in the Washoe County Investment Pool. Item 11 is recommendation to award Washoe County bid number 3012-17 for Harley-Davidson police motorcycles to Chester's Reno Harley-Davidson for the purchase of 9 replacement motorcycles on behalf of the Equipment Services Division of the Community Services Department and the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. Net amount $253,350, including options and accessories. Item 12, recommendation to approve the interlocal contract between public agencies, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office Forensic Science Division, and the State of Nevada Department of Public Safety Office of the Director for Forensic Services, including forensic analysis, DNA testing for parole and probation, and toxicology laboratory analysis for the term of July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2021, with an income not to exceed $1,873,144 for fiscal years 2018 through fiscal year 2021. And item 13 is recommendation to approve the interlocal contract between public agencies, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office Forensic Science Division, and the State of Nevada Department of Public Safety Office of the Director for Forensic Services Breath Alcohol Program for the term of July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2021, with an income of $355,486, $373,260, $391,923, and $411,519 for fiscal years 2018, 2019, 2020, and fiscal year 2021, respectively.
All right, Mr. Manager, thank you very much. I have one public comment signed in at this time. Ms. Kathy Brandhorst.
And just for the board's sake, Ms. Brandhorst had signed in for agenda items number 11 and number 8.
Great. Thank you.
I signed up for number 5 too, and nobody called me on number 5.
We didn't, I'm sorry, Ms. Brandhorst, we didn't have you signed in at that time, so I apologize.
That's not true. I handed it way before.
I apologize.
I think it's discrimination.
You can, more than welcome to speak on it now, Ms. Brandhorst.
I'm going to be speaking on 8 and 11.
Okay.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm also the United States President. I just wanted to let you know that the State of Nevada Division of Public, the mental health condition right now is what I'm going to be speaking on. The mental health, they have a lot of people escaping out of the mental health, and they're never returned at all that we could see. They're still the rapists, they're still the murderers, they're still the bank robbers, and they still torture people in their own homes. They hang people by the neck until dead, and this is happening where I live right now. I moved to Sparks, and they never took care of the problem at the Donner Motel. So it's going to be all over the city again. We have been complaining in Sparks. A lot of the buildings are empty because we are scared to death that we are going to be next in the torture. We also noticed that the Human Resources Department are stealing our money, our checks. They do not return any of our money, so we are homeless. And I just wanted to let you know I will be homeless too, because I'm not going to go through that another month. I already went through it for 14 months at the Donner Motel, and I don't expect to go through it another month at all. And I just wanted to let you know that even though I don't have no money to continue, she needs to return everything that she had to steal from me. I just reported to the IRS that they deposited 92 zeros and it went all the way down to 0 again. So there's nothing in the banks at all. I just wanted to let you know, number 11, the Equipment Services Division, Community Service Department. The county sheriffs is a really hard thing to deal with right now, because when the sheriffs show up, they are not hired. They are not the sheriffs at all. But they will tell us that they will arrest us, but we're not the ones that are supposed to be arrested. We are the innocent, and we were the ones that called.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhorst. All right. Seeing no further public comment on this time on the block vote, I have a motion by Commissioner Burkbigler, second by Commissioner Jung. I'll call for the vote. Hold, please. Bear with us for 1 second. All right. All right. Everybody would place their vote and signify, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Can the commissioners confirm all their votes on the board, please? All right. We have confirmation. All right, Mr. Manager, at this time, if we can, I know we have public here for our public hearing. So if we could take, if you don't mind taking
It's your prerogative.
16 out of order. We'll move to items 16, 17, and 18.
Okay. So item 16 is public hearing. This is for possible action. Public hearing, discussion to affirm, modify, reverse the Planning Commission's approval of tentative subdivision map case number WTM 16-003 Bailey Creek Estates, a 56-lot, single-family residential subdivision on 2 parcels totaling plus or minus 28.76 acres. Site is located immediately south of the intersection of Geiger Grade Road and Shadow Hills Drive.
We have staff. All right. Threw a curveball for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, good morning, members of the commission. I'm Kelly Mullen, planner with Washoe County. And I apologize, I missed the first part. Would you like a presentation on this or just have us available to answer questions?
Are there any commissioners that would like a presentation on this item? Okay. Commissioner Hartung?
Ms. Mullen, you may not be able to answer this. It appears as if there was some previous approvals in 1994 and then 2003, I believe, or 2000, was it 2003 or 2004? 2004. Can you tell me, and perhaps the applicant's representative, perhaps Ms. Huggins can give us this information, but can you tell me what those approvals were originally?
For the 1997 one, if the applicant has that information, I'll let them speak to that. But in 2004, there was a 57-lot subdivision that was approved on those 2 parcels that did expire back in 2010.
And in the 90s, what, because I thought it was 1994 that I had read.
I'm going to hand that over to Stacy Huggins.
Okay. And so before you leave, so we had 57 lots and it was a tentative map.
Correct.
And then it expired in 2010.
Correct.
So just for clarity, they're asking for 1 less lot now. And so really, this is nothing more than what we've granted numerous other developers as an extension. It's, even though the map expired, this is not something that's new. This is not something that's just sort of out of the blue. Am I correct in that?
My understanding is there are some differences between the two map submittals, but overall, yes, in terms of
Density.
overall impacts, number of lots,
Density,
very
exactly.
similar.
I mean, that's really what we're talking about. And if I were to have purchased a house back in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, something of that nature, and had done my due diligence, I would have seen that this was a current map that was approved in its tentative form. Am I correct in that?
It would have been part of the public record.
Right. Okay. Ms. Huggins, can you fill in some blanks for us?
Sure. Good morning. For the record, Stacy Huggins with Ward Rogers, representing the applicant Silvercrest Homes. Can I do the overhead?
Coming up for you.
Okay. So just to start, the map on the overhead represents what was approved in 1994. That was the Comstock Estates North tentative map. You can see it encompasses the property.
Whoa. I was going to say, I need glasses.
No. It encompasses the property north of where Moon Lane comes into the existing project.
Okay, so let me stop you right there, Ms. Huggins. So what I'm seeing on the which would be the west side of this map, that's the current subdivision right now.
Correct.
And then on the east and north side of the map is what was approved at that time also. So those people who live on Gold Run and all of that, they would have, had they done their due diligence, they would have realized that there was a map in place for an additional phase of this subdivision, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then when that map expired, the map that you see here was later submitted and approved in December of 2003.
Okay.
It was 57 lots, 1 more than we have today. The lot sizes were different than what we're asking for today. Today, we're asking for approval of half-acre lots along the exterior and third-acre lots along the interior.
Okay.
So it's very similar layout as what was approved back in 2003. This map expired because the economy turned upside down. We all
Yeah.
felt it, we all saw it.
Yeah.
But generally, it's the same project.
Yeah, we've seen a lot. Okay, and I have a question. Mr. Smith? Can I ask you a question?
Would you like
And-
these exhibits left up here?
Yeah, and you may want to stay. He may not be able to answer this question because I know that this one's a little left field. The approval in 2003, Mr. Smith, go ahead and identify yourself.
For the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering for Washoe County.
Thank you, sir. In 2003, what kind of drainage would we have required, and what would be the difference between what we're looking at now? So here's the question that I'm really coming back to. And even maybe going back to 1994, had this project been built in the 90s, it would look completely different in terms of its drainage, its detention, its retention requirements than it would look in 2017. Am I correct in that?
Through the chair to the commissioner, no, I don't believe that there would be significant differences. I don't recall what parts of the code have changed since 1997 up
Okay.
through now, but I will tell you that any development within Washoe County has to go through a process by which hydrology studies are performed, then the project has to conform based on those hydrology studies to Washoe County Development Code.
Okay,
It would go through a similar, if
So-
not exact same
So right now,
process.
being vacant land, any water that falls on that land is going to flow directly into Bailey Creek unrestricted.
Again, through the chair, the general topography of the property does, all the water that would fall on that property does drain to the west, correct?
Okay, so right now, though, I think I noted, and I can dig out the pages, but I believe I noted that we're going to require some detention facilities on the property?
Through the review process, through the design process, to meet Washoe County code requirements, they have to mitigate impacts from post-development to, through post-development that was existing before the project was built.
Okay.
So post-development conditions have to meet pre-development conditions.
Okay.
This project is selected to go through and use a variety of routing and detention ponds to mitigate those impacts.
Right, and so the detention ponds, though, in effect, would meter the flows coming off the property so that it wouldn't just free flow into Bailey Creek. So in effect, if I'm hearing you correctly, it'll actually help with some of the drainage issues.
The general basis of that is that through construction, through development, that there is an increase in impervious surface areas. So with that increase in impervious surface areas, there has to be a way to capture those flows and then again meter them out, just as you're saying, meter them out so that the post-development conditions don't exceed the pre-development conditions.
Right. So those attenuated flows would not exceed what was there for a raw piece of property.
That's the requirement.
Okay. The only major difference would be that the raw property, just depending on the topography, might have some absorption, some additional absorption, but I think that just metering the flows going out, I think it would probably be enough to comfortably say that we're not going to add to flooding issues pre-development.
Through the hydrology study and through the efforts of the design engineer and through our review to make sure that it conforms to Washoe County Code Development Code requirements, the project meets that requirement.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those
Thank
are
you.
all the questions I
All right.
have.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Any further questions from the commissioners at this time? Mr. Lucarelli. Mr. Lucarelli, hold on a second.
Okay.
Commissioner Hartung. Mr. Lucarelli.
Mr. Chairman, just a question on process. After the commissioners are finished with their questions, is the chair going to permit the applicant to make whatever other statements and present whatever other evidence that they have?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One last question, and I'm sorry. I had this written down. In fact, I even wrote it in red because I was curious about this. There's some concern about that you have wild horses there on this particular parcel. And and that they drink commonly from Bailey Creek. Does Bailey Creek flow year-round? Do we know? I mean, it might be flowing now, but in an average year, does it flow? Because when I pulled it up on a satellite view, it was dry. The satellite view that I got, which is probably last year sometime.
Thank you for the question. We were just coordinating to see if anyone had a specific
Yes,
answer for that.
understood.
My understanding is that sometimes that creek is dry, depends on what's going upstream at the time.
Right, so it's not an active flowing creek 24/7, 365.
And we do not have it identified as a significant hydrologic resource in Washoe County according to our
Okay.
definition in Article 418.
Okay. Is there an opportunity, by the way, to pull up a current satellite view of this so that we can actually see what's on that property? Because when I looked at it from a satellite view, and I've driven by there, but it looked like it was being used for OHV use. I mean, looked like there was a little motorcycle track out there and not what I would call perfect habitat for wildlife.
If we could pull up the staff presentation, we do have some aerial photos in there on page 11.
And we have the same issue in Spanish Springs. You have open land, kids use it as a motorcycle track. It's what they do. And that wasn't a pejorative comment, it's just what they do.
Thank you.
So
Kids
can
are
we
kids.
zoom into that? Because it's a little difficult to see, because I know that when I pulled it up on Google Earth and Google Maps both and got the satellite view, there's to the north and a little bit, the sort of dog leg up in the top left corner, there's a track on that whole series of that land there.
It may not be on that.
And Commissioner Hartman, Tech Services says they are unable to zoom in on this.
We have it on the dock camera, so if they can zoom in on the dock camera, we'll be able to zoom in on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the resolution might not be.
Well,
Can it
Okay.
zoom in anymore?
I just,
Yeah,
Commissioner,
all right,
Hart,
that's fine.
I mean, just
That's
for your,
fine.
I mean, I live in this area, obviously.
I'm just wondering if it is genuinely habitat is what
No.
is my question,
I
Mr. Chairman.
I mean, I can't speak to that because I'm not, I can't, but I live
know.
close to that area and I don't see
Right,
animals there, habitat, there's.
all the time?
No,
Yeah,
no.
okay, that's really what my question comes
Quite
back to.
frequently,
I won't belabor this any longer.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I would ask if is the appellant here? And, all right, and we'll have the appellant come up and speak.
Hi, I had some information that I wanted to give.
Great,
Melissa.
yeah, you can, please do. Good morning, ma'am, how are you?
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Pfaff, that's P-F-A-F-F. And you said my address?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay, sorry, I'm
No, okay.
first time. Okay, so this is my presentation about what, so where's the click? Is this?
Yep.
Okay, I feel like I've gone back in time 10 years trying to use PowerPoint. Okay, so current FEMA flood maps have not been updated since 2009 for this area. This is of concern for residents because the creek itself appears to be shifting and eroding, which could have consequences with floodwaters, erosion, and soil displacement. As presented by literature compiled by the UNR Cooperative Extension on Local Flooding, which I just gave to her, it is mentioned there that when people compact soil and construct impervious surfaces such as roads, parking lots, and rooftops, the rainwater that would have soaked into the soil runs off the land rapidly into the nearest creek. When we urban flows or peak flows, we also increase the likelihood of flooding downstream. There's also a really good explanation there I think you guys could get some good info on. It explains how floodwaters proceed down in a canyon, just kind of like the way that area is. As mentioned, the developer plans to install detention basins to address this, in addition to diverting some of the runoff to Bailey Canyon Creek. While they maintain that these measures will handle stormwaters, this does not guarantee anything in the event of floodwaters, mainly stormwaters like was mentioned before. It is clearly stated in that literature that Bailey Canyon Creek has a flash flood history. Many long-term residents of that area remember the 1986 flooding where the foothills were under a few feet of water, all of that area. A current resident on Moon Lane today, near Bailey Canyon Drive, is currently experiencing rapid erosion of his backyard under the fence into the creek itself as a result of this year's storm. The study conducted by Wood Rogers in 2006, commissioned by the county, makes recommendations for improvements for this area specifically to mitigate flood damage and soil erosion. In this study, it was recommended that it be revisited in 10 years should these improvements never be implemented, which they weren't, and a new study has not been done. While it was determined that said improvements were not cost-effective, this does not negate that added culverts, detention basins are desperately needed in this area, and current culverts still need maintaining, improving, and close monitoring in the event of floodwaters. We found out when we called that a lot of the the culverts and drainage systems in the current homeowners' areas, the Cottonwood Creek Estates, the Bailey Canyon, or the Comstock Estates, which we're a part of, many of those culverts and drainages were not being maintained because they were originally a part of the homeowners. Well, the homeowners associations in those communities have since dissolved, and nobody even knows whose responsibility it is to maintain these things. It is also recommended in the literature provided by the university that strategies for the prevention of future flooding include watershed management and floodplain management, using both structural and non-structural flood control methods are essential to preventing future flooding. It makes little sense to add new development in an area that is lacking in current optimal flood control methods. There is already too much improvement needed for that area in the infrastructure, and minimizing flood risks should take priority over development. To allow for expansion and construction in an obvious flood zone while the current infrastructure is lacking poses a threat to the safety and property of the current residents. In a similar case, we saw Fritz versus Washoe County, where a resident was negatively impacted in a similar way after the approval of maps, changing the flows of a drainage system after the development of a subdivision, and in district court, Fritz won. Okay. Now, if we were looking at a plot of land off Keystone and not a few feet from a creek with a potential for flash flooding, I would agree that the developer is most certainly within code and there's absolutely no cause for concern. However, that is not the case in terms of location in this situation. This is why we have our lawmakers here to present our case to, because sometimes the code fails to consider extenuating circumstances that most certainly exist in this case and any new and emerging risks. Look at the current situation in Lemon Valley and ask yourself, how much does this proposed development compare? Will these new homeowners one day be waiting in septic overflow of the residents upstream? Are we sure that we have considered all studies and asked all questions to protect not only the developer and landowner, but all of the persons concerned in this matter, future and present? I wanted to just explain real quick these pictures. The first picture there is a picture somebody sent me in January of the Via Bianca Estates at the beginning of Toll Road there. They're not even close to the creek. And these homes are underwater in that picture, and that's from this year. The second picture is, I'm standing in my backyard in this picture, and that's Bailey Canyon Creek, is what I would describe a raging river in my backyard. It was terrifying to go to sleep and wake up the next day. I could hear the creek raging as I laid in bed, and I never would have thought, we just bought this house, we've been there just about a year now, and I didn't even have any idea the potential for what we had in our backyard. The third picture, as I said earlier, one of my neighbors down the street, his yard is eroding under that fence into the creek as we speak. Okay. Moving on. Brown School is a coveted nesting ground for the young minds in Reno. Many parents want their kids to go to Brown School. Why? It has amazing reviews and outperforms many other schools in the area. With the low estimates we have for this proposed development on the impact it would have on our local schools in this district, it makes me wonder if this has been coupled with the hundreds of other projected new homes soon to come up in this school district. As we know, the city of Reno has also approved hundreds of new housing apartment units and
Ms.
so
Pfaff,
forth.
I hate to interrupt. We usually give our presenters 10 minutes. So if you could start wrapping up your presentation
Has it
for
already
me.
been 10 minutes?
That's okay.
Oh my God. Okay. So, okay, I'll be fast then. It doesn't appear that the city and the county are getting together to collaborate on the impact these developments are going to have on South Reno. In addition to the school district, we wonder the impact on local fire stations, law enforcement, water, etc. Lastly, well, that's everything I just said. See what I mean? I haven't done this since college. Lastly, I would like to sum up by addressing quickly the concerns of the 226 voters from Washoe County who signed the petition we started speaking out against this development. Many people moved to this area of town to enjoy the rural feel, to be able to look out their window and not accidentally catch their neighbors changing. Some of my neighbors talk about how these new homes will be placed so their backyards will suddenly feel like a stage, looking out their windows to enjoy their mountain view to find that it's been taken up by a home. Others talk about how they will miss the last bit of open space left this side of Toll Road. We talked about the wild horses, or stray horses as they are sometimes labeled. Many people still love them. Nobody's looking forward to listening to construction hours on end over the summer, especially considering how this development will be in the middle of an already well-established area. The traffic study in this the traffic in this area is fairly intense, especially at peak times. Trying to navigate the road rage and the roundabout is a juggling act. Some voice their concerns over emergency access. Geiger grade is the only way out for thousands of people. So if we have a fire raging down that mountain or what have you, all of us are going to have to try to fight, and Geiger grade in some parts is only a one-lane road. Lastly, some of the people in the area behind where this proposed development is talked at the last meeting about how there's a lot of drug activity and drug dealing going on in their community. And we just are wondering, how is that going to impact our property values should the developer not be able to sell homes for $400,000 when people come to check out a home and they're walking around and they look out and they see that kind of activity going on.
Thank you, Ms. Pfaff.
Yeah.
All right. I have public comments.
Oh, and that's Ariel and Zoe, and they really helped me a lot put this together.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I have Commissioner Herman signed in. Commissioner Herman? We'll do it in a second.
I'd like to ask Mr. Smith a question. Considering all the recent flooding and everything, do you feel that the storm retention that you have placed on this property is adequate?
Through the chair, the developers, engineers are the ones that are responsibility for the design. They have met Washoe County Code requirements through that engineering work and the hydrology study. They have not gone above and beyond to mitigate others' impacts. They are focused solely on the impacts of their development, which is our requirement. We do not require developers to mitigate others' impacts through their efforts. So I guess to answer your question most specifically, they have gone through the hydrology study process, performed the required engineering, submitted that process to Washoe County for us to review. We've reviewed that against Washoe County Development Code. It conforms to Washoe County Code. Then when the project actually is constructed, just like with any project, Washoe County will then inspect and make sure that the design is actually what's built in the field and that it meets our ultimate requirements.
Thank you very much.
All right. Seeing no other discussions or questions from commissioners at this time. Okay. We're going to call public comment at this time. So I have Chris D'Amico signed in. Good morning, Ms. D'Amico.
Hi. So I just want to say we did buy our home in 2013, and we did, well, I counted on my title person and my realtor to do good research. We were under the impression that this property was actually commercial property, so we were thinking a strip mall, storage shed, something, not a two-story house looking in my backyard. So we thought we did the research, but counting on other people to do that, I guess, obviously wasn't a very good idea. So I just wanted to say everything that we've heard, like at the CAB meeting and at the Planning Commission meeting, is that everything that this builder has requested is met code, and so because they've met code, pretty much this should move forward. What's not considered in the codes is really the quality of life in that area. I think in 2003, when that initial area was put together, or the initial plan was put together, there wasn't the building and the number of people in that area at that time. And there's more building going on. There's another building in DeMonte Ranch of 111 homes. There's a building right at the corner of, I get them confused, 341 and Virginia Street. That's going to be apartments and whatever. There's more apartments on Wedge Parkway in an area that's already overcrowded. It already, you know, if you want to go to dinner on a Friday or Saturday night, it's an hour to 2 hour wait for anywhere that's local to that area. Grocery shopping is crazy, all of that. So there's increased taxes that will probably come down the road to help with roads, schools, all that. There was a Washoe County meeting the other day for schools talking about budgets and not having enough money to pay teachers and having to lay off teachers. So there's a lot of infrastructure, it seems like, that's not in place to support all the building that Washoe County is trying to do. With all that said, based on the questions and comments, it seems like this is something that's going to be approved and move forward. Is what I'd really hope that in this is the conditions of approval that are done. That whoever's responsible for managing the creek in the back, which I think is Maddox in our area, he owns that 13 acres, is responsible for managing that creek, and that even if it's 30 feet or 300 feet, whatever that feet is between us and the next house, if there's a similar house that they're required to build a one-story house, our backyard kind of becomes a fishbowl if they're allowed to build two-story houses back there. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. I have Mr. Ron Ellis signed in.
Thank you. I oppose this development, obviously, for some of the reasons that have already been stated. First, I want to point out, you know, some of the issues in Lemon Valley. That was up to code, and they dealt with stormwater in Lemon Valley. And you know, obviously, we see the grief those folks are going through. You know, and I found out that the city has approved some multi-family units, apartments, basically, in this area. And I don't think there's been a study as to the impact of these three projects going on all at once. Brown Elementary School has a dangerous traffic situation, as does DePauli. The schools in the area are already overcrowded, Brown being one of the worst overcrowdings, and I just don't think the estimates of the number of students have been taken into account when you look at all three developments that have been approved between the city and the county. Kind of supports the argument in the paper this morning somebody was making for an integrated plan. I know there's like a regional planning commission, and you know, this all falls within the master plan, and I'm sure that you've all read, you know, the plethora of issues that the development brings. Traffic's an issue. The flooding is obviously something that needs more study, at least. I'd like to see the development put a halt to, because it's really scrub and floodland. The flood maps haven't been updated for 10 years. I looked at one study that said that it expired, and there was a lot of infrastructure stuff. You know, the water usage, we don't know that we're always going to have the incredibly good winters water-wise that we had this year, that we were blessed. We would hope so. And then the other thing that hasn't been addressed is additional resources for law enforcement. You know, obviously more families are going to bring more crimes. We've already kind of heard that there's drugs that are in the area, there's a trailer park in the area, and I think our sheriff's office that serves that area is already overstressed, and I haven't heard anything about the developer providing extra money for this. This is a California developer, not a county taxpayer or a resident, and the residents will be taxpayers once they purchase these homes, but you know, this is a developer coming in, trying to put some houses on some scrubland, and that's really all I have to say. You know, and the wild horses obviously become an issue as well. City people move into rural area and then they freak out when they see a horse, so that's all I have. I see my time is at an end. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Commissioner Hartung, you said you had further questions for staff on this issue.
I do, and I'll, let me start with Mr. Smith, and then I'll move to the applicant. So, Mr. Smith, let me get back to my notes here. Forgive me. Thought I had them in front of me, but I did not. I do now. Is this property in the FEMA-recognized flood zone, floodplain?
The very southeastern portion of the property is in the shaded zone X FEMA area.
Okay.
The primary zone A is in a separate parcel that runs in between the existing development and this proposed development.
Right. Okay. Like many parcels in Spanish Springs, will the developer be required to remove them from the floodplain and then mitigate those flows, or how will that work?
No, because it's a shaded zone X, there is no development code requirement through FEMA for any of the parcels that are developed. That shaded zone X doesn't carry with it that requirement.
Okay.
That's only within the 100-year floodplain area.
It's only within a
Which is
100
zone,
year.
right, different zone.
Okay. And so this is greater than 100 year,
Correct. Shaded zone X is 500 years.
as any place can be. I mean, I had a ton of water in my backyard this year. My house didn't flood, but I had a lot of water,
It's a good
as
point.
did everybody.
It's a good point.
So, okay. That's all I have for you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Huggins? Average lot size here is 17,869 square feet.
That's correct.
Will you guys require an HOA, I hope?
Yes, could I just really quickly, could you turn on the overhead if you wouldn't mind? Yes, we will have an HOA as part of the Bailey Creek Estates project. And the HOA will maintain all of the common areas
Great.
associated with this project. And we have also been having discussions with Mr. Maddox about taking care of the Bailey Creek common area that is currently not being handled by the Cottonwood Creek Estates HOA.
Okay. Your water dedications will come from Tumwa, or do you own water rights?
From Tumwa.
They'll come from Tumwa. So that'll be approximately on 56 dwelling units, plus or minus, so you'll need less than 100 acre feet of water.
Sounds correct.
Okay. Sewer?
Available?
Okay.
Public sewer?
Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, will they have to do any work to the surrounding infrastructure, the collectors, or?
I don't have the plan right in front of me, but through the chair, they will be responsible for all their on-site systems.
Of course,
And then
of
they'll
course.
have to connect to the next available or nearest available portion of the collection system, and they may have to extend to make that connection.
But we do have capacity available.
These flows will be treated at Washoe County's South Truckee Meadows Water
At Stem
Reclamation
Wharf.
Facility, and there is
Correct.
capacity available for
We
this
have
project.
capacity available for this.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know whether Ms. Huggins or Ms. Mullins, whether you can answer this. Across the street is Curdy Ranch, which is where a lot of the opposition came from, City of Reno project. It's to the north and to the west. That's,
Purdy Ranch doesn't actually show up on this map.
oh, it's there. What's right next to it, Stacy? Up, yes. What's that?
This is county development. I apologize, I don't know the name of that county development, but that's not part of Purdy Ranch.
Just Virginia foothills.
Those are Virginia foothills? Even to the, because those look like relatively small lot sizes there.
I'm going to defer to staff if that's
Like
okay. I
off
think
of-
she has a better map.
Off of Shadow Hills and et cetera, that's all Virginia foothills? That's an extension of Virginia foothills?
Across Geiger Grade there is Shadow Hills and Sagewood Estates. Those are the names of the subdivisions.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
And a large number of the properties across the road there are in the vicinity of about a half an acre.
They're about a half an acre? Okay. And then Curdy is to the, that's directly to the north and to the west, which is a very, comparatively speaking, high-density development
Yes.
off of Veterans Parkway.
Correct. Purdy Ranch would actually be to the northwest of our site.
Okay. Couple of last questions. And this one may be for RTC. We're requesting a, and I don't understand why, and because I see Amy in the audience. Hi, Amy, how are you? We have Ms. Cummings in the audience from RTC. We're only requiring, Amy, would you come up and talk to us about the requirements? And what I don't understand is this is an NDOT right-of-way, so why is an NDOT here talking about this? Did they give you guys purview over this section of Geiger Grade?
Amy Cummings, RTC Planning. And I'm here for the Regional Transportation Plan item. I'm not
Oh, I'm sorry.
familiar
Yes.
with this.
Okay, I thought,
Different thing
development
altogether.
request.
okay.
So-
My bad, and forgive me.
Commissioner, if we need,
No, I wanted, my question is a decel lane, and was there any talk of like a high T out on to Geiger Grade?
If you would like, Paul Salegi is here, who worked on the traffic study for this project and
Okay.
had those discussions. Perhaps he
Okay.
could answer your question, if that's okay with the chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I did see Mr. Salegi earlier in the audience. Nice to see you, Mr. Salegi.
Well, good morning. For the record, I'm Paul Salegi. Our firm prepared the traffic study. In terms of the discussion about how this recommendation arrived in the study discussing a deceleration lane, when we started the project, this project is small enough that the 56 units wouldn't trigger the need for a traffic study, but the developer wanted to make sure that we adequately addressed impacts, and they knew that they'd have to get an NDOT encroachment permit and an NDOT access that are on Geiger Grade. So we spoke with Washoe County staff and also NDOT staff. As we did the analysis, the right turn volume of folks arriving was large enough to trigger the need for the right turn deceleration lane based on NDOT's policy. And since we will need to get an NDOT encroachment permit to build the access, that's why the recommendation arrived in the study.
And no recommendation, Mr. Salegi, for something like a high T at that area for people who would want to turn west onto Geiger Grade?
The studies of the findings show that the access will function sufficiently. It will meet level of service policy, that a high T is not needed, that the left turn movement out functions adequately, meets county policy for that level of service on that exit move.
Minimum level C?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then one last question. Are we tying in, Ms. Huggins, you can fill this in. Are we tying in with Moon Lane? Will this, at the far south end, will it tie in with Moon Lane? And was that on the original map? You know, back in the 90s and the 2000s, was it intended? If it is, was it always intended to be that way?
If I could have the overhead. Stacy Huggins for the record. So again, this is the tentative map that was approved in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
You can see Moon Lane comes in right here,
Right?
potentially coming across and connecting.
Okay.
Then in the 2003 approval, Moon Lane comes in cul-de-sacs, not to cross the creek.
Okay.
following the 2003 design to some extent and bringing this road in. This road will be improved out to Kivett.
Right?
We are providing an emergency access gate right here.
Okay, so that won't be a regular thoroughfare.
That emergency access gate will be operated by the fire department only, so
Okay.
the public from this project will not be able to go out that way unless there's a reason why they cannot go out directly to Geiger Grade.
Okay.
So we are improving that portion of the road to the similar extents that the project was originally approved.
So we're not adding any traffic directly to the west, to the project that was originally tied together over on Gold Run and any of that?
That is correct.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
May I also, just for clarification, since this came up, I want to just show you all, we didn't have these at the Planning Commission meeting, but this slide represents the type of homes the developer is proposing for this project. They will all be single story, and they will be a comparable size to the houses that are currently developed across the creek in the Cottonwood Creek and Comstock Estates developments. So I just wanted to share that with you so you could see.
Okay, thank you, everybody. All right, at this time, we've heard from the appellant and also from the applicant. I would look for a motion
Mr.
this
Chair.
time. Commissioner Hartung.
Well, I'm very sensitive to the public's opposition to these kinds of things. I've seen the same thing in Spanish Springs literally for the last 30 years, and not to kick that horse at all, but I understand some of the dissension. I look at this as nothing more than an extension of that map that was handed out in the 90s and then later in the 2000s. I would remind us, but I'm reminding myself, that we're not in a position to look at whether a developer can sell a product. That's not in our purview to say, will they be able to sell it or will they not be able to sell it? That's just not in our purview. So I would make a motion to uphold the Planning Commission's findings for the Bailey Ranch project.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hartung.
Second.
And I have a second by Commissioner Burke-Bigler. All right, at this time, Mr. Labarelli.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. So, just so I understand the commissioner's motion, is that making the recommended motion in the staff report?
Yes, and did you want me to read it to deny the appeal and to affirm the decision of the Planning Commission to approve the conditions of the tentative subdivision map, case number WTM 16-003, Bailey Creek Estates?
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung, for putting on the record. Commissioner Burke-Bigler, do you agree?
Absolutely.
All right. I have a motion and a second. I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Aye.
All those, aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we have a 5-minute.
Yes, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess for bio break. We're in recess.
What did Kitty say?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to bring this back to order here pretty quickly. If I can get staff. Okay, we'll just stick with it. We'll just stick with our current path then. Okay. All right, we are going to bring the Board of County Commissioners meeting back to order. At this time, we were on to agenda item 17. Mr. Manager.
Item 17 is public hearing for possible action, discussion on appeal of the Board of Adjustments modified approval of variance case number WPV AR 16-003 Snyder, which approved a 7-foot front yard setback from the edge of the roadway to facilitate the construction of a garage with living space below. Possible actions to be taken are to affirm, reverse, or modify the decision of the Board of Adjustment. The appellant is requesting that the Board of County Commissioners modify the variance by allowing a 1.74-foot setback rather than the 7-foot setback that was approved by the Board of Adjustment. The 5.63-acre property is owned by Patrick and Philomena Snyder.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Do we need a presentation on this item? Any of the commissioners? Commissioner Burke-Bigler?
I have a couple of questions I just want to get on the record and so.
Okay. Commissioner Burke-Bigler, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Kraus. I appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Kraus, I am curious about the 1.74 setback rather than the 7-foot setback. I'm familiar with Ganawabi, and this is a very narrow road. I know that we do have some that are relatively close. I don't know if we have any that are that close, but I know we have some others that are relatively close to the road. I think I'm a little concerned about this 1.74-foot setback. Is there anything specific about this particular house's location that gives you pause or gives you concern?
Okay. For the record, Eva Kraus, Planner, Community Services Department. The applicant requested the 1.74, the 1.7-foot setback based, actually, the applicant's here and they can tell you exactly why they requested that. I was concerned because in this situation, there is actually no really legal roadway easement. The road goes through the middle of this property owners. The last 4 lots on Ganawabi Road are all bisected by a road that just goes through their property. There's no real easement. So we don't really have anything to measure from but the edge of the pavement. And that was when it came in, and I was concerned about that, so I asked the county engineer what her thoughts were on this, the traffic engineer, and she recommended, based on ASHTO, that's a highway standard. I got the definition in the staff report of what that stands for, but based on the ASHTO standards, she recommended a 7-foot setback instead. I do know that on Ganawabi, there are homes that are right at the property line, and in some cases, that is like a foot or less to the road too. So it varies on this, on Ganawabi. It's a very unique situation.
Yeah, I know it is, and I know we have historically had some concerns with properties on Ganawabi in the past, largely because of snow removal. This is Crystal Bay, there's no place to put it, and I would be wondering if where this is located, if we allowed it to go that close to the road, if we weren't putting the house in, the corner of the house in danger from snowplows, from whatever as we go through there.
Well, and actually, that is always a concern. The county, we actually make them sign a hold harmless on that, saying that if snow piles up on your house or garage, or there's damage to it because of that type of work, we are not going to be responsible for fixing that.
Yeah.
And I know our roads department's very careful working on Ganawabi because it is a unique situation.
It's very unique.
But it is challenging.
Okay. Could we have the applicant come forward and speak?
Welcome, Ms. Elise Vett.
Thank you.
How are you?
Welcome.
So yes, Ganawabi Road is unique.
and it has a history of 0 foot to 2 foot setbacks. So we went through on these aerials, and also from my experience, and I know Eva, she didn't have a chance to visit this particular site. She's been on Ganawabi before, but this particular one she hadn't had a chance to look at before she wrote the report because it was January and it was not very easy to get up there with the storms. So on the aerials, you can go through and see that there are basically only 2 homes on Ganawabi that have a garage setback of 7 feet or greater. And one is a 2-story, and it's 2 stories at the road, and then it's 4 stories tall. And that one is greater than 7 feet, and then there's one other one. We've summarized the information from the base maps, and, sorry, I'm not used to this clicker, so let me try it. So these are the various base maps that we went through. And so all of the items that you see in the bright green, those are all of the properties that have their garages at less than, 0 to 2 feet, basically less than 2 feet from the setback of less than 2 feet from the edge of pavement or the right-of-way or the property line. And I have a variety of pictures, but we can flip through those at the end. So we don't feel that we're requesting a special privilege, and as she noted, there is not a right-of-way or a road easement through their property. Their property is the kind of a goldish yellow one that's up near the top. You'll see a blue circled property, and then just below that, just 2 down, that's their property. It's the first property of about 3 or 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them that have no right-of-way going through them. There is a utility easement. So we've been going back and forth on maybe the utility easement is a better distance to measure from because it's something that is a legal line versus an edge of pavement that can vary depending on each time that they repave the road. But in any case, you can see that we have 27 of the 34 properties with garages that have setbacks of less than 2 feet. And the ones that are in blue with an NG on them, those are existing properties that are developed that do not have garages yet. Sorry, there it is. I highlighted the site plan to show what our constraints are that you were asking about. So we have very few of the existing cabins that are remaining, and we're pleased that this home they are trying to keep this existing cabin. It is the one in red, and you can see that there's a 5-foot radius that we have drawn from the corner of it between the garage and the home. And that is where we have to have an imaginary property line for building code. And then we have already chosen to do a 1-hour wall on the garage, and we've stepped back the covered walkway over the stairs so the bottom of the stairs won't be covered in order to get as close as we can to that imaginary property line. We've also, as you've seen, we've angled the corner of the garage over by the road. And so we are working around this existing cabin, and we're cut back, sorry, I already did that portion. So the garage is sited as tight as we can to the side property line, which luckily angles the garage door so that it's very helpful for visibility. And you can see that there's 7 feet from the garage, the center of the garage door to the green line, which is the utility easement line. The edge of pavement is about 6 feet from the center line of the garage. But if you come down this one-way road you turn in easier, and when you're backing out, you have better visibility looking out as you're trying to back out. In addition, you can see the garage. There's 2.5 feet from that one corner where we cut the angle to the edge of pavement. However, if you look at the distance over to the end of that parking pad area, that's all paved area. And I'll show you in the pictures. This is a unique part of Ganwabi, and that's something that, maybe Eva didn't notice, and also the Board of Adjustments. The three men who did not vote for this, they were concerned about the utility trucks getting around, about fire emergency getting around the corner of this garage. Well, it is actually 32 feet from the corner of that garage to the retaining wall over there. And so this corner happens to be right in the center of that big wide area of pavement that's very unusual on Ganwabi. And you were talking about snow removal. This is actually used by the snow plows as a temporary storage spot, that parking pad, because there's so much area there. And so they move it there if they don't have a place to put it for a little bit while they're trying to figure things out. In addition, we are not taking away from snow storage, because there is, where that blue circle is, that blue line, that's where we're taking away the stairs that you'll see in the picture that we have that are the access to the road now. And that's where now they will be able to still store snow. So we're basically trading places on where the snow storage can go. This is the retaining wall situation. So you can see how steep it is here. It's obviously, and Eve is well aware of that and had pointed that out in the information of the staff report, that this is a very steep lot. It drops 15 feet down in this area. So if you, and it drops in one area, it drops 15 feet in 10 feet of distance. So they had a big erosion issue that happened because of water coming from Nevada Department of Transportation, the highway. They've resolved that. The water continues past this point now, but it was badly eroded. The edge of the pavement was going away, and they built this wall to hold it up. So this is a picture of that particular spot, and there are two red lines that are drawn on each of this. So the top one is as you're driving down Ganwabi in the direction of the one-way road, and you can see the corner, the one proposed corner of the garage and the other proposed corner to the right. Do you see those? And then the one on the lower picture is looking back on Ganwabi. And so you can see how close the other garages are, and they don't have this large, wide parking area across from it. There's another house further down you see, and I can continue showing you other ones, but all the garages are very close to the edge of pavement on this road.
Thank you very much. Actually, in consideration, I think we should actually allow this 1.74 setback on this road. I was concerned, but I like the fact that you showed us the pictures, because I know, in my mind, I can tell you guys, this is probably the safest place to do this, is that the road is probably wider here than it is anywhere else. So I'm actually fine with making the motion to approve the setback as requested. So any other commissioner have comments?
Commissioner Hartung, you were signed in for comments.
I am, Mr. Chair. Is Ganwabi a public road?
A part of it is, but not this, but it's plowed by the county. So I'm not sure how.
How does this, it's a private easement or private right-of-way?
Ganwabi is a public road up to this property.
Okay.
And after that, it extends across this property and the next 4 properties to reach the highway. And none of that is actually a real, we do maintain it, We do take care of it, but there is nothing on the records that show that this is a public road.
So it hasn't been dedicated? That's,
Yeah.
that's the question. It's not, okay. That's my question, is has it been dedicated?
Mr.
Okay.
Liparelli?
Mr. Chairman, I'm very familiar with the legal issues on Ganawabi Road. We litigated those issues for 8 years. And I'll stand corrected by the applicant or Ms. Kraus, if these parcels are in the original subdivision tract, the problem was that the map was never recorded, and that's the usual way in which the title to the road passes. But there's a doctrine in the law called the doctrine of implied dedication, which we believe applies to all these parcels. And it holds that when there's a map and it shows a road and everybody treats the road like a road, then it's a road. And so that's what we believe exists here, even though you don't have the usual title history that you do. Also, the road's been paved since the 70s, so whatever claim that people may have once had, that their properties were not burdened by a road or an easement, have gone away a long time ago because they've acquiesced to the existence of the road in its current configuration. One other quick note, the map road doesn't match with where they put the road because they put the road where it made sense to put it, and the map had it in some places slightly differently. So you can't go strictly by the map, but you can go by where the pavement is, and the applicant has demonstrated in the application the distances between the edge of the pavement and the proposed improvements, so you're perfectly fine to rely on those representations as a fair statement of those distances.
All right.
Thank you. And I just have one other question for our staff. Ms. Kraus, did we send out notices for this appeal?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And I think you will note, unless other commissioners received, I received no opposition, and I see, I'd like to just hear public comment.
We have no public comment signed in?
We have no public comment either.
None.
Yeah, and so I'm happy to support the commissioner and the district as well.
All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Bergbiegler. I will second this motion because I have personal experience with Ganawabi and I know the challenges of that road. So I will support Commissioner Bergbiegler, and so I will call for the vote at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner, Mr. Liparelli.
Just a clarification on the motion. The Board of Adjustment approved a 7-foot front yard setback. The applicant appealed that decision, so this board's decision is to overturn the Board of Adjustment and to approve a 1.74-foot setback.
Yes, correct. That's what my motion was.
Very good.
Yes. Seconder agrees. So the motion was to affirm the Board of Adjustment's approval of variance case number WVAR 16-003 Snyder with a modification of the setback so the road to be reduced from 15 to 1.74 feet to facilitate the construction of garage.
Correct, with the findings as listed in the staff report.
Again, just to make sure the record's clear, it's an affirmance in the sense that a setback variance is being approved, but it's a overturning of the number from 7 down
Correct.
to 1. Okay.
Correct. All right. I have a call for the vote this time. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, next item is item 18, and this is, again, public hearing for possible action to approve an outdoor festival business license application pursuant to Washington County Code, Chapter 25, and related provisions, and associated license conditions for the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue 2017 Outdoor Festival, scheduled to be held from July 1 to July 4, 2017 in Incline Village. The event location, dates, times, and expected attendance are listed in the agenda item, and if approved, the Director of Planning and Development Division of Community Services would be authorized to issue the license when all pre-event conditions are met.
Do we need, does any commissioners need a staff report on this, being that we've seen this a number of times? All right. I do have public comment signed in. Mrs. Kathy Brandhorst.
All right.
I'll make a motion. Okay.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I am the United States President. Again, you have mentioned dismantle. It is proposed to end on July 5th, 2017. Again, you have spectators in attendance. I know what this is all about. You're going to destroy the dismantlers. You're going to destroy the U.S. military. And that is the purpose of dismantling. And also, which is expected to draw between 8,000 and 10,000 spectators. The event also proposes to hold a parade, which I don't think anybody will be there to see a parade, just to destroy the dismantlers and the seniors, the veterans, and also the U.S. military. And that's how I feel that this statement is on this statement again. I just wanted to let you know there's going to be a way to Incline Village is what we have. And also approximately 2 hours of this show. I hope that you do not plan to show this to the public, because there'll be so much blood that there'll be a lot of screams from the spectators. And I just wanted to let you know, I hope this is destroyed. I hope that this is not going to be planned. I hope it's not a planning or development division at all, because this is not going to go on. I hope not in our territory. Also, I just wanted to let you know that the Community Service Department to issue the license. Now, I mentioned this before. I hope you're not going to tell us that you are the ones that have the license to destroy the innocent, the people who are here to help us destroy the ones on death row. Again, they come across the border of Mexico and into the U.S. They are the murderers, and that's why you're here, to help the United States. The problem is still existing in the community services.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhorst.
Oh.
All right. Well, you'll bring it back. So I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Commissioner Burkbeck.
I will make, first I want to take the opportunity to thank staff and the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue team that's putting this together for bringing this issue to us much sooner than we have in the past. And I know it's a big issue, and I know Ms. Krause is working really hard on this and really understands the issue, so I want to thank you for that. I will move to approve an outdoor festival business license application pursuant to Washoe County Code, Chapter 25, and related provisions and associated license conditions for the Red, White, and Tahoe Blue 2017 Outdoor Festival, scheduled from July 1 through July 4th, with all of the APN numbers and everything as written in the staff report, and that would be in part of the motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Burkbiegler, second by Commissioner Hartung. I will call for the vote.
Oh, jeez.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Ask the commissioners to confirm their votes on the screen. All right, moving on. we are going to go back now. I thank you for everybody for bearing with us for those that short public hearing. We are on to agenda item 6.
Item
Mr. Manager.
6 is an appearance from Frank Flavin, Washington County Executive Educator for Washington County Cooperative Extension, and presentation and update on fiscal year 17-18 budget.
Mr. Flavin, thank you so much for being patient. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Frank Flavin, Chairman Lucy, members of the commission, and Manager Slaughter, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity to make a presentation on behalf of the 38 members of faculty and staff of the Washoe County Cooperative Extension, part of the University of Nevada Cooperative Extension System. It's been a while since we've made a comprehensive presentation to the board. Prior to 2008, we were much closer to a county department than we were since then. Prior to 2008, we had 8 county employees that were assigned to cooperative extension. We utilized county purchasing, county mailing, and a number of other county services. At that time in 2008, because of the budget constraints, county management asked us to become more of a special revenue account and a pass-through fund, so that we no longer were considered a county agency as far as having county personnel and that type of thing. So legally, every year we provide a budget and we provide a background information on how we're expending the monies and what were accomplished, but we haven't had this yearly presentation that we had prior to 2008. This year we requested an appearance because there are a number of changes that have occurred statewide. Most of you are familiar with the ongoing discussion of whether or not we should merge with the College of Agriculture. NACO has been involved to try to get more extensive state funding for extension, since our budget was 72% reduced by the university in 2012. So there's been a lot of issues. Recently also, I think our southern colleagues in the Clark County office have released a Kraken, judging by the fact that there's a bill in the legislature to take part of extension and give it to UNLV. So a lot of issues, and I thought it was time for us to have a presentation so that you can answer any questions you might have about our operation and budget. Cooperative Extension's mission is to discover, develop, disseminate, preserve, and use knowledge to strengthen the social, economic, and environmental well-being of Washoe County residents. A better way of putting that might be working together regionally to provide and sustain a safe, secure, and healthy community through community education. I think our overall goals and objectives parallel those strategic priorities of Washoe County. Our funding from Washoe County is established through the Nevada Revised Statutes, which were the statutes started in the late 1940s, and basically a 1 cent ad valorem tax is provided for cooperative extension in those counties which desire to have cooperative extension programming. As a piece of history, in 1914, the Smith-Lever Act was established to establish a community-based education system through the Department of Agriculture federally, the state through the university system, and the local governments, counties in this case. And in 1916 was the first time we had a cooperative extension educator in Washoe County. Basically, our programming, the initiatives and programs we have are done through a logic model. It's a structured way of achieving program results, and we start out with the situation that needs to be addressed. We do that through the priorities that are established by the community, such as Washoe County strategic priorities, and through needs assessments. And we proceed through to the end to figure out what we were going to do and have as impacts. And hopefully we have programs that have low cost and high impacts rather than programs that have high cost and low impacts. And this logic model is a way of ensuring that. Underlying principle is what gets measured gets done, and the logic model provides us as a means of evaluating our programming. And so we're looking for 3 kinds of impacts, and we've laid those out in that 36-page report that you may have used to get to sleep every now and then. It's we have the short-term impacts, which are the usual educational impacts of knowledge gained. The midterm impacts are behavioral changes, and then the long-term impacts are condition changes. So as example for our youth nutrition education, the kids learn the value of eating fruits and vegetables. That's the knowledge gain. The midterm impact would be they actually eat the fruits and vegetables, and the long-term condition impact would be better health. We have 6 statutory areas that we engage in: agriculture, community development, health and nutrition, horticulture, personal and family development, and natural resources. And under those, agriculture would be things like Cattlemen's Update, risk management, training for farmers and ranchers, community development, little libraries, green industry training, civic engagement, health and nutrition, our nutrition programs, radon education, integrated pest management. Horticulture would be master gardeners, grow your own, and various lectures at the parks within Reno on gardening. Personal and family development would be our 4-H and early literacy programs, and natural resources would be our drought and flood programming. And these also comport very well with the strategic priorities in Washoe County. For instance, in safe and secure and healthy communities, our programs in Living with Fire, which mitigates fire hazards in the wildland-urban interface, and our radon education program to reduce the radon threat in homes would both fit within that category. In our major programs, we have 4-H Youth Development is probably our flagship program. Sarah Chavilicek, who heads and coordinates our 4-H programs, is here today. 4-H is a nationally recognized youth development program. It's one of the few programs that's been studied over decades and is the preeminent program for life skills for youth, building youth character, reducing risky behavior. It's been all well documented. Our 4-H clubs are more than just project clubs. We do have the traditional clubs, which for livestock and horses that we used to have, but we also have a real emphasis on STEM programming, science, technology, engineering, and math, agriculture, animal sciences, healthy living. We teach life skills, and I think 4-H turns out really high character, functional youth for our communities. I would also like to add that the myth that we reduced 4-H during the recession and due to university cuts is not the case in Washoe County. Sort of like a body when you have hypothermia reduces everything to the core. We did that with 4-H. We've maintained 4-H. It's actually expanded during that time. Literacy First is a program that gets children ready for their school experiences. Research shows that if there's reading in the home, that those children do better in school. This is a major emphasis. Our Master Gardener program, I think most of you are familiar with. We do consultation with members of the public to have garden issues. We donate produce from our plant sales, and we are involved with the green industry training as well. Green industry training, we train the landscape industry and basic training. We have bilingual landscape training for Hispanic landscapers and their supervisors, and we have drought workshops. We partner very heavily with Temwa, Nevada Landscape Association, and the May Arboretum. Urban IPM, basically the program is to eliminate pests in a safe way that does not endanger health. We have a very active program. It also is a good economic development program. Grow Your Own Nevada, there's an emphasis on food security now, and Grow Your Own Nevada reaches out to home gardeners to provide food security and training in effective gardening and small business development. Bioplastic container cropping, Washoe County was sort of the center of a regional research study on using bioplastic plots that are green, safe, and useful. Living with Fire is the preeminent national program on wildfire mitigation in the wildland-urban interface. This program has been adopted internationally, and probably for most of the states between Alaska and Florida. It's very well recognized nationally and very well instituted in Washoe County through the Fire Adapted Community Program and our Basic Living with Fire educational exercises. And Ed Smith from that program is here today if there are any questions. Radon education. Radon is the biggest threat for non-smokers for lung cancer, and we've had a very active program. It's federally financed and enhanced with funding from Washoe County. January, February, we give out free radon testing kits, and we've had extensive testing in Washoe County. You can look at the zip code map that we have and find out what the radon potential is within that zip code area. Nutrition education, smart choices, small steps for big changes, veggies for kids, and grow yourself healthy are all programs aimed at healthy eating, living to a healthier lifestyle. And water resources, we're very involved with both drought and flood issues and have an active program there. This year, we are also involved with the public water supply system management. And here's the breakdown of our Washoe County employees by percentage of funding by Washoe County. And as you can see, 4-H youth development is our core, and we have across the 6 different program areas statutorily that we have a good representation. Agriculturally, we don't have an agriculture faculty member, but we do receive programming from our statewide system for farmers update or ranchers update, that type of thing. And there is our last full year that was measured. As you can see, our grant funding slightly exceeded our county funding. So for every county dollar we got, we brought in about $1 in grant funding as well. The state and federal portion, of course, lags way behind, which is too bad. Okay, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Any questions from the commissioners at this time? Commissioner Burkbigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, not so much a question as just a comment on what a great service you're providing to this community. And I've been concerned ever since the university moved you into the Department of Agriculture that we are assured that the amount of money that comes from the county that's specifically designated to the cooperative extension is in fact used for the cooperative extension. And so I guess my major concern is that the funding that we give you does not get rolled into the general fund budget for the agriculture department, but is earmarked clearly and carefully for cooperative extension. And I guess the other thing I would ask you is if you see that there are some problems coming about. I know Sarah and I talk about this on a regular basis, and so if you guys see there are some problems coming about in the new structure, I would appreciate it if you would make sure you let the county know so that we can step in. This money is earmarked for this purpose, and we want to make sure that it goes to this purpose.
I would agree with that, Commissioner, and I think the key things are legislatively that extension keeps its special line item. It doesn't get merged with the university as a whole, and anything that can be done to have a policy board to inform the president of the university or universities if that other bill goes through, I think is critical. And we are going through a period now where we're looking at what the organizational structure of extension will be under Cabner, and there's 2 models that they're basically looking at. One is the Washington State model, in which extension stays as its own integral part, and then there's the Oregon State model, in which all the extension faculty and staff answer to a department head on campus and various departments. I think that would create a difficult situation for our counties in that in Washoe County, we look to the board and the county for our directions as to what we should be doing. If you have to look to the department head that evaluates your work, they have their own department priorities. I think having that split authority is going to be difficult for the faculty and staff members under that system. So that hasn't been decided yet, but that will be an issue.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So thank you very much for that. I know that that is a concern for some of the other commissioners as well as myself. And we do want to make sure that the cooperative extension stays strong and that the monies that are going from the counties, and it's not just Washoe County that gives money to this particular cooperative extension, we're behind you 100%. So if there's any way we can help you, please let us know.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiggler. Commissioner Herman.
We had discussed at NACO about an MOU that may be very useful and helpful in this situation. Do you recommend that the county work with NACO and try to produce that?
We could certainly do that. I don't think we've had an MOU since the early 1990s, and we've basically been operating on the present system that we have. I've got no objection to doing an MOU. It would, you know, it sort of defines how we expend the budget, but I think that really rests with the county as to whether or not you want to do that.
Okay. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great presentation, Mr. Flegman. That's, it really summarizes what you guys are all about. One of the things that I would like to see more of in the future and a direction I'd like to see the county going in is encouraging more agri-hoods instead of just general open space in subdivisions, having a place where people or someone can grow fruits and vegetables in their own neighborhood. And it's been widely proven all over the nation. We're just sort of behind that curve, but it's something that is badly needed here, and I think there is absolutely a place. And I think people would love to see that kind of use of open space as opposed to just grass or lawns or just general open space, as it were.
I think that's entirely feasible. We just expanded our Master Gardener program by having an additional coordinator, so hopefully those are the types of things we can look into. I know there's a great movement towards urban agriculture across the country. I think Milwaukee has a great program that could be emulated. So that's certainly something we will look into, and thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, seeing no other discussion on this, we appreciate you taking the time today and coming out and continue to support cooperative extension. It is a tremendous asset for Washoe County, and as through your presentation, we continue to see that and would like to see it grow, continue on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate the privilege of addressing you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, next item is an appearance by Amy Cummings, Director of Planning for the Regional Transportation Commission. And Ms. Cummings will be presenting an update on the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan.
Good afternoon, Ms. Cummings. How are you?
Thank you, very well. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all about the 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. We are going to be starting our official public comment period later this month, so we are here today to seek your input as we bring the plan into the final stretches here. We spent most of last year facilitating a series of community workshops about the regional plan to gather ideas about these various specialized transportation needs in our region, including veterans, economic development, freight, senior and ADA transportation issues. In addition, we had some community-wide public workshops, and we're going to have an additional public open house on April 25th at the Discovery Museum, and that's going to be from 4 to 6, and I do have flyers in the back of the room and can leave some with you as well. So we hope a lot of people will join us there to look at the plan and provide comments. We also appreciate participation of Washoe County staff on both our RTC Technical Advisory Committee and our project-specific, just for the RTP, agency working group. So that has been a big help to us throughout. The projects that we're going to be talking about, those have been identified either as projects currently in our 2035 RTP, through the other planning studies that have been ongoing over the last few years, including our corridor studies, the North Valley's planning study that just completed, the short-range transit plan, and others. as well as projects suggested at our community outreach events. And here we have the RTP broken down into 3 time periods. The first time period is the first 5 years of the plan. And for each of these time periods, our project costs have to match our revenue forecast. So we call this our fiscally constrained plan. And you can see I've highlighted here the projects that are going to be underway in the near future, the next couple of years. 4th Street Prater Way obviously is already under construction. INDOT's going to be starting the reconstruction of Glendale and 2nd Street here later this spring. And Virginia Street is in the final design phase with our extension up to UNR for the rapid service. And Audi Boulevard is our next quarter improvement project that's going to start design later this year. And of course, we're working very closely with INDOT on the Spaghetti Bowl improvements. And I don't want to read through the list of all the other projects here. We are implementing our Complete Streets Master Plan that was adopted by the RTC last year. So you'll see many capacity projects to deal with traffic congestion, but you'll also see many projects that are focusing on bicycle and pedestrian connectivity and pedestrian safety throughout the plan. And again, this is the second time period of the RTP, 2022 to 2026. You'll see a lot of the capacity projects in the North Valleys that were the direct result of our North Valleys multimodal plan that was completed in recent months. We're happy to be able to move forward with that. And to follow up on some of this discussions earlier today, we do have a widening on Geiger Grade in this time period to widen from 2 to 4 lanes in that section, near Toll Road. And then as you look at the out years of the RTP, the 2027 to 2040, again, we have a range of other multimodal and capacity projects. This is when we anticipate having resources to do some of the capacity improvements that are needed on I-80 and 395 North. That was another big need that came out of the North Valleys multimodal plan, as well as the Pyramid 395 connector, which RTC is completing the environmental studies for currently. In addition to the big projects, we also have some line items in our RTP for the smaller scale ADA spot improvements. So that's curb ramps and sidewalk improvements and crosswalk improvements throughout the region. At our public meeting on the 25th to talk about the RTP, we're also going to have our bicycle and pedestrian master plan draft available. And that's where we pull in some of these smaller scale spot improvements for bicycle and pedestrian needs. So we will have ongoing line items in the RTP for bike and ped and ADA, as well as traffic signals and operations. We have about $2.6 million per year for intersection improvements, as well as our pavement preservation program continued throughout the life of the RTP. In terms of our short-range transit plan, again, this is another study that's currently being completed by the RTC. And we have we are limited in our resources for transit in terms of expansion. There's much more that we would like to be able to do. But these are the opportunities that are reasonably foreseeable with our existing resources. And that's to implement the 4th Prater transit line improvements and the Virginia Street extension of the Rapid. We'll also be looking to reallocate some service hours to improve the efficiency of our routes. One example of that is increasing the service to the VA hospital. And you'll be hearing of some public meetings that RTC is going to be hosting to talk about those service changes over the next month. We're also upgrading our Villanova maintenance facility to accommodate more electric buses and are looking at potential for a pilot program to better serve some of our outlying areas with transit targeted towards seniors, as well as expanding our taxi bucks program, which again gets to those areas where we don't have fixed route buses to expand those mobility options for everyone. We also heard a lot of input about additional transit expansions that the community would like to see. This has to be a fiscally constrained plan, and we don't have the revenue anticipated to be able to fund these, but we did want to identify them as our vision in the regional transportation plan. And that includes the streetcar, both on Virginia Street and to the airport, expanding our downtown circulator service, and getting express bus service to several areas of our community, including the Summit, on South Virginia Street, and on US 395 North to better serve the North Valleys, as well as on Pyramid Highway. We've also been asked to look at commuter rail opportunities to the Tri-Center, making use of the existing UP line. So that's certainly something that we are interested in pursuing. Our next steps are to complete the draft, have that available for public comment, and we're going to all of the jurisdictions this month, and we'll be bringing it to the RTC board in May for adoption. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any comments that you have for us as we finalize the plan.
Thank you, Ms. Cummings. So I have Commissioner Hartensenden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was sad to see, Amy, that we don't have either Pyramid Highway or Eagle Canyon until 27 through 40 with Eagle Canyon. Pyramid Highway is 20 through 22, and that's phase 1, but you know, there's a desperate need from Egyptian essentially all the way out to the end of the valley right now. It's a very treacherous stretch of road. We've asked for a light at Calle de la Plata, which will help to put the cars into platoons, which will hopefully meter the traffic and make that intersection much safer as it continues to grow. There's an additional need out a little further right by Pebble Creek with a coming subdivision, but that can be dealt with at some point in the future. Eagle Canyon currently, as I mentioned to you offline, Eagle Canyon from Neighborhood Way essentially up past the high school, there is no other place that I'm aware of in the entire state where you have an overcapacity high school and an overcapacity middle school on a 2-lane road situated essentially in the center of a residential area. And everything coincides with commuter traffic. So if you could, you know, if we could change the school times where you wouldn't have the traffic trying to get in and out of the two schools, it may work, but sadly I know that that's not going to happen. I think at the time the high school was built first, of course, and then afterwards we saw the middle school built, which is Shaw. And I think that the idea was that there would be some economies of scale and easier for people to deal with, but it really has turned into a very hazardous situation for people trying to get in and out. And even if it comes down to trying to put a light in at Elena or some type of control device, I know that there's been talk in the past of putting in a roundabout there. But the problem with roundabouts is if you have a main flow of traffic coming from one direction, the side streets still have very little opportunity to get into the roundabout because of the nature of it. So the traffic that would be coming from the north, it'd be very difficult for them to enter the roundabout. It's long overdue. As I mentioned to you offline, I literally begged Greg Krause and Derek Morris when the original plans to widen Eagle Canyon and improve the intersection at Eagle Canyon, La Posada, and Pyramid Highway, which the geometry of that works very well. That's a great intersection, and in fact, it's a model for future intersections in Spanish Springs. But as you move up past Neighborhood Way, especially during school hours, it's very, very difficult. And the biggest issue, and we've already had some accidents where people are using residential streets to circumvent the main thoroughfare, and you can't stop them from doing that, of course, but the problem is streets like Nicole were never designed to handle that kind of traffic. They're relatively narrow, and in retrospect, if we could revisit those things, I would have forced a different view and potentially even putting a cul-de-sac on one end in the middle of Nicole to stop that through traffic, period. But we can't go back and revisit that. So we really do need to try to get Eagle Canyon some kind of improvements moved up on the CIP. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may add, the RTC, we're currently working on our Unified Planning Work Program for FY 18 and 19. And one of the projects that's been identified is Eagle Canyon. So that's something that we're going to be taking a more detailed planning look at over the next couple of years.
I'm happy to sit out there with you guys with a thermos of coffee and donuts in the morning, and we can really sort of watch some of those traffic patterns. And I know my own staff, if I may, Mr. Chairman, our staff has worked on some solutions to try to slow people down on those side streets, but it's, you know, really the best way to deal with it is going to be increased capacity on Eagle Canyon. And ultimately, if we see it put through, which I know that there's an appetite by the Reno Sparks Indian Colony to put Eagle Canyon all the way through to Lemon Drive, I know that they have that appetite. If they do that, there will absolutely be some capacity issues because people will use it as a workaround to 395. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Commissioner Jung.
Thank you. Just a simple request, and I've been asking our RTC designees to carry this as well. And I think Commissioner Hartung's lengthy explanation of his community's needs show where RTC is not being transparent and soliciting community needs vis-a-vis having televised meetings that we can tune into. And if RTC can't handle that at their facilities, we would be happy to let them use it at that time, but they can pay, they have plenty of money, and they can pay our production crew to start filming these meetings publicly. They arguably have the largest budget in Northern Nevada with, to me, the least transparency. I see nothing other than the RTC connector. Well, that's them telling me what happened at the meeting. I'd rather watch the meeting from home several times if I could. And it's really the only board meeting that we don't have televised that is of that largesse in terms of how much money they take. So I really, Ms. Cummings, please insist to your director, and I'm begging my two appointees to take this to the RTC as well, and let's get you televised. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing I have no other commissioners signed in for comments. Ms. Cummings, thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. We look forward to continuing to work with you on future issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Manager. I think that takes us to item 14.
It does take us to item 14, and if we could combine 15 together, they're both legislative discussions. Item 14 and 15, these are discussions and direction to staff regarding legislation or legislative issues proposed by legislators, by Washoe County, or by other entities, permitted by the Nevada State Legislature to submit bill draft requests or such legislative issues as may be deemed by the chair or the board to be of critical significance to Washoe County. And for Washoe County, this would include, but is not limited to, AB 39. And item 15 is the same item with regard to the chair or the board of the fire commissioners of Trenton Meadows Fire Protection District.
Mr. Rogers.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Al Rogers, Office of the County Manager. We did provide to you, I believe yesterday, our typical weekly update to the Commissioners in terms of activity for both last week and then also looking ahead to this week. So hopefully you've had an opportunity. Just a couple of real highlights from that report is, and not included in your bills of interest, is SB 57 regarding the V&T Railroad was passed out of committee, the Senate committee, and that did pass with Washoe County being omitted from moving forward with the V&T Railroad. So again, something that we weren't necessarily eyeballing, but it does impact us moving forward. The other one is that also noted in that report is Friday is the deadline for committee passage. So right now, I believe our number in talking to Ms. Rodriguez is somewhere around 589 bills that we're tracking right now. We are certainly hopeful after midnight on Friday that that number will drop a little bit and will become a little more focused, obviously, as a whole and certainly as it relates to Washoe County. So with that, we have provided you a weekly legislative bills of interest. We have 25 on those. Hopefully those reflect our discussion from a couple weeks ago in terms of bills that were identified at this dais that weren't on that bills of interest are now included in there in terms of a summary and also a current status in terms of where it is in the process, if it has been heard or not. So with that, I think we may want to address AB 39 first, so I'm going to turn it over to the county manager.
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
May I
Commissioner
jump in
Hart,
before
yeah,
the-
Commissioner
before the
Hartung.
manager? I'm sorry. Just briefly, I know we've had a lot of discussion on AB 39. There's been a lot of things that have gone back and forth. You know, right now, we're at regional, we're really trying to focus on getting the regional plan update done. We're trying to focus on regional priorities, projects, and programs beyond the purview of the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, which would be, you know, homeless shelter, consolidated dispatch, forensic lab services, the health of the downtown corridor, the Truckee River corridor, the lands bill, and there's a whole bunch of things. I would respectfully submit that given the environment of what's going on, perhaps it's time to rethink AB 39, pull that, and potentially try to go a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. You know, and I would concur with Commissioner Hartung. I think over the last couple of months, and we've had significant conversations with all the parties involved, the City of Reno, City of Sparks, and regional governing. I feel that the conversations have been evolving over that time, and I think we're moving in the right direction with discussions for future resolution with all parties involved. And I would concur that with Commissioner Hartung that we have other priorities here at the county that we need to focus on. So I think our removal of our support and removal of the bill would be at this time the best possible course of action for us moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I
one
could,
second.
as just a little background on some of the discussions that's been occurring at my level, there has been several meetings with myself, the two city managers, the regional planning director, a request that we had been given by Senator Ratty was to find if there was room for and a desire to find a role for the city managers and the county manager with regard to providing insight, providing advice, consultation to the regional planning director. That discussion has continued and does continue. So I would ask that if we go forward with this, that request come from this board, that we continue to find a resolution on that particular issue.
Great. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I completely respect that. So I would move that we request the chair of the Assembly Government Affairs Committee to withdraw AB 39 from further consideration during this legislative session, and further instruct the manager to continue working with partner agencies and the legislature.
I have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Hartung. I will second that motion. I have no public comment signed in. So, Mr. Liparelli.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me. With these legislative items, it's not practical or maybe even humanly possible to put everything that the board needs to vote on the agenda. I think it's certainly safe, and I believe as the motion suggests, to direct staff to act on behalf of the county in these situations. I think the county manager can divine from the majority approval of the motion, if it passes, that the Board of County Commissioners feels a certain way about legislation. But I just want to point out there is room for criticism in these open meetings when action is taken on specific pieces of legislation. As you can certainly approve the motion that was offered, and then as the county manager and I have discussed, continue to refine the agenda as individual pieces of legislation pop up that the board is specifically interested in, to put those on the agenda as items of their own, so that the public has notice that the board will be taking a position on a specific piece. So in this situation with the deadline looming, if you don't act today to give some direction, the legislative team is sort of up in the air. This motion would allow them to understand the board's intent, and then perhaps as we go on, we can spot these specific bills and put them on as specific items, so board action can be binding.
Great. All right. With that being said, thank you, Mr.
And
Lepre.
the county managers just pointed out that AB 39 was specifically listed on this agenda, so his office continues that practice of trying to be as specific as possible with this
Great.
fast-moving environment.
Thank you very much for outlining that. So we have no public comment. We have a current motion on the floor to from Commissioner Hartung to withdraw our bill of AB 39 at this time, seconded by myself. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Let the record show that Commissioner Jung was absent for the vote. All right, motion carries unanimously, so that gives you staff direction that they need to move forward with those future endeavors. And hopefully, I feel, I just want to add one comment. I'm optimistic that we will find a resolution. And these aren't binding problems. They're just challenges come up, as we continue to grow and are as a dynamic community. So I look forward to future resolution with both the cities and the regional governing board, and hopefully we can find that solution through our manager and staff. So, all right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Hart,
If I
Commissioner
may,
Hartung.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
I did
sorry.
push the button. And I thank you for that, and thank you for the support, and I will continue to work with the Regional Governing Board as one of our representatives to get the regional plan update done and to try to deal with some of the issues that have been brought forward with AB 39. And I think that there are a plethora that we can address in the update. And hopefully this will give us a little traction with the governing board to revisit some of those things. And I genuinely appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Vice Chair Burke-Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What bill I don't see on here is Senator Kiekhafer's bill relating to GIDs. I know it got a hearing, and I'm not sure what its condition is. Where
It
it's
is, I believe you're correct.
Yes.
We had AB 349 and AB 379, I believe, related to GIDs. And AB 349, I believe, is Assemblywoman Krasner's bill.
That's correct.
And I do not
349
see
is
the Senate
Krasner's
bill related to that. So the general topic, I guess you could talk to if we're supportive of that issue, or whatever direction you would want to go.
Thank you. Then under the general topic of GIDs, as it relates to AB 349 is directed very specifically to Incline Village. I think that's appropriate to have oversight and review and audit of these GIDs. I don't think it's appropriate to just target IVGID, but I do think it's appropriate that these GIDs are using taxpayer dollars. There's one in Verdi, a television district. They don't have television service out there. So where's that money going? I think an audit, a full audit of all the GIDs is an appropriate request for the county to ask for, and some oversight over whether or not they really still need to exist. And I believe that is something that might be targeted in Senator Kieckhofer's bill. So I would request that staff please take a look at that bill and see if it's going to get forward movement and then bring that back to us at the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, for the record, that is Senate Bill 462, and we will take that direction.
Thank
and
you.
Include that in further future updates.
Mr. Chair, could I am very concerned about this concept of using taxpayer dollars that are not transparent. Commissioner Jung was just talking about the need to have transparency with RTC, but we have a need to have transparency with all of these other entities that receive taxpayer dollars. And I am very concerned that we are not seeing that. And that means that constituents are paying into these funds and they're not seeing it either. And I really think that that's a problem that needs to be addressed. The legislature should be very concerned about taxpayer dollars being used for things that are not appropriate to what taxpayers think they're being used for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioner Hartung.
No, that was for last.
Okay.
The last item.
All right. Commissioner Herman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I had you list, they're
It's
still
an H.
stocked in there.
Yeah, on GIDs, I agree. We've had quite a few hot conversations at our GID over not being transparent. So, yeah, I agree with that. And if we're through with that one, then 272 passed, it went through their hearing process and looks like it's going to go to the full Senate. And if we have the state engineer in that much control over domestic wells, which since 1939, we have never seen the water engineer be involved in something that wasn't called a water right. And so I'm real concerned about that one, real concerned.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Herman. You know, and I had just a couple quick things as well. And staff, can I get you guys to clear Commissioner Burke-Bickler and Commissioner Hartung? That's all right. Thank you. All right. So I know who was ready to speak. One thing I want to bring up is AB 43 was NACO's bill in regards to the property tax initiative. That's not going to move out of committee. That is going to die this week, or has already died. But the one thing that is, the one positive thing that we did see out of AB 43 is that there is ACR 7, which is an interim study that's going to be proposed by Assemblywoman Neal to discuss property taxes and what that's going to look like for the next legislative session. So, which once again helps tremendously with our budgeting process to make sure that we can forecast properly going forward. There's also SB, which is SJR 14, which would be revisions to Senior and Disabled Taxpayers Protection Acts, and it would protect some different challenges to the economic. So I just kind of want to keep track of SJR 14 and ACR 7, see where we are with those two initiatives, being that they are property tax initiatives moving forward. Other than that, I have nothing. Commissioner Burke-Bickler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other one that I had some concerns about, and I believe we voted to not support at our last meeting, was SB 315. That's the waste management bill, and I believe our vote was to not support it unless there's some significant changes. And so if you could give us a report on where that is.
To Commissioner Burke-Bickler through the chair, at this time, I can't give you any more than it was heard by committee, but to your point, we will follow up with you when there is an action.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Commissioner John, do you have anything you want to add at this time? Nope. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Manager.
If I could speak to one bill that staff had, and Carson had asked me to address, and that's AB 97, and that is a bill related to the testing of what are called safe kits, the forensic analysis kits for sexual assault. This is Teresa Benitez Thompson, Assemblywoman Teresa Benitez Thompson's bill. There's a requirement within the bill that they be tested within 180 days of being received. The staff's not concerned with the policy of the bill, it's the fiscal impact of the bill. So the intention of staff is to, there's a hearing, I believe, this week on this bill, not to oppose the bill, but to just put on the record concerns about the fiscal impact of some $820,000 a year and no funding mechanism identified in the bill.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioner, Vice Chair Burke-Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one other bill, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a total blank on the number, but it was the one that requires body cameras for our sheriff's department. And I don't remember the number of that, but I'd also like to know where we are on that and if that's going to make it out of Friday, if it's going to get through Friday, and what the fiscal impact to us is going to be on that also. I think that's a very important issue. Our sheriff, it protects not only our citizens, but it certainly protects our sheriff deputies, so.
Mr. Chair, I could answer that. That's Senate Bill 176, and that bill has already passed out of committee, so that bill is moving.
Okay.
Regarding the fiscal impact, you may recall our discussion. The bill provided for the use of E911 fees and also provided for an increase in those fees of up to, I believe it's up to 75 cents, an additional 75 cents on top of the 25 cents that's now allowed.
And that's the way it came out of committee?
And that's the way it came out of committee.
Thank you.
And just as a note, that fee increase will come, when that occurs, that fee increase will come to this body for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. See no other discussion. Is there no other items that anybody wants to discuss in regards to legislative items at this time? All right. Seeing nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. I think you got enough direction today.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Thank you for all the input, and again, don't hesitate to reach out to any of the ledge team during our next week before our next update. So thank you.
Great. And Mr. Rogers, if you will, please pass along to our team in Carson City a huge thanks and gratitude for all the work that they're doing. I know it's a difficult session and they've got a lot of moving pieces. We appreciate their constant diligence on everything that they're working on. So thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Manager.
And Mr. Chair, as I noted, that was both items 14 and 15. So I don't know if there's any.
That will take us to item 19.
Item 19, which is discussion update pursuant to Commissioners' previous requests and/or topics for future agendas. And by way of introduction, this is by request from a number of the board members to, on a regular basis, review previous requests that you have made to staff. We have created a beta of a report. We're prepared, I believe, to review that report with you and kind of two levels, review the report, the model of the report, and if there's changes you'd like to see to that, but then also any specific of the items that are within the report. Mr. Rogers is prepared to review that.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, maybe just to walk you through so you have a clear understanding. I'm sure it's self-explanatory, but the cover sheet you have is an update on primary requests. These will be ever evolving, although right now we do have some that are long-standing and probably will continue on this list. So again, that's the intent of kind of the cover sheet, is to identify those. The next page is new. It's again, working calendar. All things are tentative, but again, hopefully that gives you a snapshot of what potentially will be coming down the pike in future meetings out to 90 days. Certainly this, as I mentioned, will be evolving and changing, but we do want to identify those things that we have somewhat of an idea of are coming up on future agendas, again, for your heads up. And then at the bottom of that, we've included, again, as county manager, all of this is a beta, so really appreciate your input and feedback on this, is a Washoe 311. This is just a real quick snapshot of this in terms of a graphic and some overarching metrics and high level, what we're hearing from community. We can, with WASHA 1.1, WASHA 3.1.1, as we move forward, dig a lot deeper in terms of reporting, so look forward to that, but I just wanted to give you an idea of, again, the power and kind of things that we are experiencing within WASHA 3.1.1 as we start that. And then the remainder of the body of your document really are those items that County Manager Slaughter pointed out are items that are active, we consider active. I think we had the opportunity to at least have a prelim discussion with you yesterday to clean these up a little bit in terms of issues. So if we didn't capture any of those, certainly this again is a working document, so input and updates on these from you and from us will continue to occur. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Commissioner Herman.
Oh, I was going into the next thing, that's what I was, the next, the missing
agenda item.
one, but is it too soon to do that?
So you don't want to speak on the BCC requests?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought I wasn't sure. All right, so I found that in my list of things that there was a lot of missing ones. So I don't know if you want me to do that at this time, go over them?
Through the chair to Commissioner Herman, pleasure of the board.
Can we meet offline with Commissioner Herman to get
Absolutely.
those, to get her, just to clear up her list and obviously get her requests notated on the report?
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Commissioner Herman?
That'll
Okay.
work.
All right. Commissioner Jung.
Just a simple request. For WASHO 3.1.1, is it okay if we get a monthly report that is by district of what the requests are and what I mean, I don't need to look at other people's district, but if each of us would get a snapshot of, and I get this from Reno Direct long ago, as you know, but you can take they have dashboard items that you can print that would tell me what's been kicking for that month in District 3. I'd be happy to look at the rest of yours as well, but I think that
You should
that
always
gives us
educate yourself.
I should mind my own business.
You should. You need to educate
I'm
yourself
not
on all of
that
our
good
items.
at that.
She just said is ours don't matter.
Yeah.
Yours matter, yes. Every Washoe County citizen's life matters. But I would like to have, now that we got 3.1 up and going, and I want to, a shout out to 3.1.1 staff too. They've really transitioned into a professional call center atmosphere, and one that not necessarily my citizens, but some of your constituents have said to me that they really enjoy that they have this ability to call Washoe for any issue. And so you tell me the most submitted resident requests, but I think it'd be interesting to see in my district what people were doing and in other people's districts.
Thank you. To Commissioner Jung through the chair. Yes, absolutely. We have that data that we can pull out and show by district moving forward. And also, we're hoping that on the front end in the near future that the citizen actually making the inquiry and or the service request will have the ability to identify what district it's coming from too. So not only on the reporting end of seeing those, as we get them, we can kind of, if not necessarily preview to you what are what issues and questions are coming from certain districts. So
But they're not going to be able to identify their district. We'll have to identify it for them.
very similar to what's on the website right now.
Exactly.
By looking at your address, it will self-populate into
Oh,
that
it will?
district.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you.
Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so I'd like to meet with Mr. Smith offline and Mr. Rogers, because there's, we're missing at least one thing that I'm aware of on mine. And I did talk to staff. This is not a fault of staff. I had it written down, and then when I talked to staff, I neglected to bring it up. So I absolutely want to talk to Dwayne and Al. With respect to item number 2, the alarm ordinance, I'm a little disappointed that it's going to take us until June to resolve that, because we have, there's been a number of complaints with respect to fees that were charged, late fees, and I don't want to let this thing go
we really need to have basically an accounting of those late fees and where they are going. Because we've got a company out here who can just send out a notice and say, hey, you're late. People not knowing or not questioning it will pay the late fee. The alarm company gets to keep the late fee from everything that I've understood. And this is an ongoing problem. I still have some people calling me up telling me that they've received late fees. So, to wait until June, and I would like to have the alarm company, I would like to have ATB in front of us.
Right.
Even though I know that they're in Colorado, and I know that, giving them plenty of time. And then when this comes before us, I would like the opportunity to potentially change the vendor. Want to make sure that we have plenty of room to do that. If we don't get good answers and good reasonable data on how and why and where they have charged those fees, I would be ready to make some changes.
So I think Commissioner Hartung, I know, I appreciate what you're trying to say. I think what we need to do is bring that back as a separate item, because this item specifically just talks about the BCC request.
Right.
Not the actual intent of the request.
But
So it's kind of a little blended, so
Sure.
I'd like to stick to just the request
No,
themselves.
and I understand that, but it gives a date, June of 2017.
Right, so I think that what we need to, I think what you're trying to address is the prioritize, and I think, I
Yes.
agree with him, is the ability for us to prioritize our request and make sure they're moving along with you. So if we can do that, that would, I think that's really what Commissioner Harting's trying to get to, and then we can get to the meat of those issues, specifically what he's trying to address at a later time and date.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so is there any other discussions? I have a public comment signed in on this, so I'm going to take public comment. Miss Lori Olson.
And for the record, Mr. Chair, Ms. Olson provided some documents which I'll put on the record and distribute to the board.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Olson.
Lori Olson, good afternoon. There are 3 documents that we'll go over in just a moment here. The reason I've decided to speak on this item is that I'm requesting a detailed report regarding Steamboat Canal's stormwater operations be placed on an upcoming agenda. I didn't say future because I've seen the future and I'm scared. I attended the commissioners' meeting on March 21st and spoke on 2 important issues to Collin Ranch: the Steamboat Canal flooding, private property, and animal-resistant containers. I spoke regarding the stormwater flooding that has negatively impacted residents in the common areas of Collin Ranch and Ward 1 along the Steamboat Canal. Ward 1, we're in Ward 1, and I'm pretty sure that my association, we have well over 2,000 homeowners. We represent over 4,000 constituents. I was shocked to hear that the commissioners were unaware of the responsibility, conditions, and profound damages being caused by the Steamboat Canal. Washoe County Engineer Dwayne Smith is here. He's aware of the problems. Until a little while ago, I hadn't heard from him, but he told me they're doing something. In all due respect, Mrs. Jung's, we'll get to it in 18 months, just was not what I wanted to hear. On March 21st, Commissioners Hartung and Burke-Beagler both asked for a staff report regarding the 3 ditches. So the handouts that you have is one. This is the document that was given to any Collin Ranch homeowner that showed up at the annual Steamboat meeting on March 16th.
Ms. Olson, could you please talk into the mic?
Sorry. I was allowed to attend because I represented the association and our water rights. Our homeowners were not allowed to attend. You can see Steamboat had no responsibility for the flooding. Call somebody else. After the meeting on March 21st, again, it was very dismayed by the fact that nobody seemed to know what was going on. I immediately penned an email to Mrs. Burke-Beagler. I provided her with, again, you'll see the document. It's the Steamboat Canal Use and Maintenance Agreement, which has been in effect since 2011, showing that Washoe County has responsibility for that ditch while it's on the Collin Ranch property at least. I have not received to date, I have not received a response for my email dated March 21st. However, I did receive a response from Sarah Tone, who's not copied, the very next day, telling me that she was excited to tell me that they were setting aside 300 animal-resistant containers for Collin Ranch. I was very happy to hear that. However, the ditch operations and what's going on at Collin Ranch deserves more attention and time, and I believe that it deserves the respect of a response. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any further direction to staff on the current requests for staff that any commissioner may have at this time? All right, seeing none, Mr. Rogers, I think you've got the ample direction you need again for this item.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Chair, I believe our next item is item 20, which is public comment.
We are on to our final public comment. We have Miss Kathy Brandhorst signed in, but she is no longer in the audience, so we will move that. We are on to item 21.
Item 21 are Commissioner, County Manager's announcements, reports, updates, requests for information, or future agenda items.
I don't have anybody signed in on this. I have just one. I would ask for a staff item for a 2-hour ruling for, to discuss the Downtown Reno Navigator Program, and see how Washoe County can participate in the Downtown Reno Navigator Program and Ambassador Program. All right, seeing nothing else, seeing nothing further, we are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen.